and 900 AM Independent Black Media.
Need a new mattress? Stop by to see Julian, the mattress man, located at 7421 Stenton Avenue. You deal directly with the owner, Julian, to ensure the best prices on name brand mattresses like Sealy, Posturepedic. Call 215-424-5550. That's 215-424-5550.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests, listeners, and hosts of any program on Word Radio do not necessarily reflect those of ownership, management, or advertisers of this station. Home of the Happy Hour. With Sincerely Sarita. This is Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Streaming live at wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
You're listening to The Source, an eclectic arrangement of diverse, powerful voices tackling the issues that affect us all. So let's get started with The Source.
Welcome to The Source. Happy Thursday afternoon. It is Thursday, July 9th. Is it the 9th or the 10th? The 9th. Child, I'm trying to keep up. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and I am your host for today from 1 to 4 p.m. As usual, I've got lots, and I'm killing trees. I really need to. But my equipment in the studios doesn't work as fast as I wanted to pull up the information that I want to give you. And there's a lot I want to talk about from the hours of 1 to 2 today. It'll just be you and I, the WURD listeners. So if you have something that you want to say, if you have an opinion, you want to talk about something, the phone numbers to call in is 215-634-8065, and it's toll-free, 1-866-361-0900, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, and we are streaming live on all social media apps at Word. At onWURD. I'm having one of those days. So listen, this is why I'm feeling a little discombobulated. This morning, I got a call about something that was reportedly happening in the community, and wanted to find out, if I needed to do an interview about it. But see, the way I operate is that I always do my research, and thank God I always do my research, because as a direct result, it started a chain of phone calls and a chain of conversations, only to realize that if someone maligning another person, that could have destroyed someone's life. And so I'm telling you this all to say this: when someone puts something out and say, I've got something to talk about, or something is pressing on my mind, you want to always make sure before you put it out that you have your information, the correct information, because not only can you destroy somebody's life, you can start a whole flurry of things, a chain of events that you'll never be able to take back, right? And so because of my research this morning, and I spent the entire morning having these series of conversations and dotting my I's and crossing my T's, you'll hear me talk about it one day next week, but I just need you all to know, don't call me or send me any information about people if you don't have corroborating evidence, if you don't have, what we need to know to corroborate what you're telling me, because you literally can destroy someone's life, and we have to be very mindful about that. The other thing is, before you post it, before you put it in an email, before you pick up the phone and call somebody, make sure that what you have is the correct thing. Do you hear what I'm saying to you, right? Too often we go through this and we're creating untenable situations for people. And especially right now with everything that's going on in America, we have to be incredibly careful. Anyway, I know I have Neil Mal on at 3 o'clock, as usual. Brianna is actually in the studios with me today. Yay! Brianna is my content producer extraordinaire, and she is amazing. We just go back and forth, right? And so I was telling Troy, who was here earlier, that I don't do anything. I always make sure Brianna is taken care of, because Lord have mercy, without her, I don't know what I would do. Everybody wants to talk. Everybody wants to have an interview, and I can't possibly take everything at one time. So she's kept it all going. So Mal is coming in, and so I have some things that I want to talk to you about that I just downloaded. It says here by, this is the Associated Press, and it was written by Alisa Chung, John Kai Mehta, and Christiana Silva today. In the wake of ongoing protests for racial justice, young people in America are demanding change from their schools. I'm talking about this article first because at 2 o'clock I have the student president of Central High School coming on, and then at 2:20 and 2:40 I have Central alums that are going to be on the radio station talking about an article that I'm going to read to you shortly before 2 p.m. Please understand that for those of you who are just joining this radio show for the first time, I am the sister that talks about education. I'm all about the young people, making sure they get what they need, making sure that all is right and fair and well for them, and not just talking about it, but being about it. So to that end, we've always found ways to highlight the students. We've been doing it for months since I've been on this air, highlighting students and making sure that their voices are heard above and beyond the important adults and the muckety-mucks, as I like to call them. I laughingly say that. So this is, it's saying effective anti-racism education requires more diverse teachers, excuse me, and more training. Petitions are circulating all over the country in support of creating anti-racist education. One petition written by alumni of Xavier College Preparatory in Phoenix, Arizona, calls on the district to review and advance its curriculums, goals, and objectives as they relate to social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm reading this because I'm also telling you, teachers and principals are telling students that they cannot change a curriculum midstream. Not true. Absolutely not true. Education is the most valuable tool to dismantle racism and create a more equitable society, the petition reads. Samaya Delane, along with Khadijah Adamu and Samiza Palmer, started a petition in Montgomery County, Maryland, where they went to school. These are long-standing issues that need urgent solutions, Delane says. It needs to be total transformation versus reform. Palmer says she doesn't think there can be a truly anti-racist curriculum unless the teachers have gone through the same sort of training themselves. Travis Bristol, an assistant professor of education at the University of California at Berkeley, agrees. He says that for students to receive an anti-racist education, teachers need better training and students need more diverse teachers. All of this is in service to what he calls the American project of, in part, forming a more perfect union. I believe that to begin the work of forming a more perfect union requires us to enact anti-racist training, but it also requires us to prepare teachers to think about how to design anti anti-racist teaching, says Bristol, who is a former New York City teacher, and that is what gives me hope. He says anti-racist training means a fundamental disruption of the way in which teaching and learning happens in our schools today. It centers whiteness and white people, and it has always done that. And so we have to start with the preparation of teachers. He says there's convincing evidence that black children perform better in school, that they're able to persist through high school, that they are less likely to get suspended and expelled if they have a black teacher compared to a white teacher. So there's clear evidence that for black students, there is added value for black teachers. There is a growing body of evidence that for white students, there is a preference for having a teacher of color when compared to a white teacher. This is absolutely true. There has been data now out for a year or two that says white students really would love to have a teacher of color in their classrooms and experience that before they get to college. In my own research, he says, I have found that school districts have done a remarkable job of recruiting black teachers, but they have, in many ways, placed at the feet of black teachers the undue expectation that they can somehow fundamentally address 400 years of oppression. School districts concentrate black teachers in the most challenging schools without giving those black teachers the necessary resources to address the 400 years of marginalization and subjugation. And so, because black teachers are placed in the most challenging schools without the necessary resources to teach black children, black teachers are leaving their schools, not their students. They're leaving the poor working conditions, the conditions that do not give them tools, the resources, the ongoing training to teach black children. And so out of frustration, while doing good work, while raising test scores, while allowing black children to persist, they also leave because they recognize at the end of the day, they do not have the tools and resources to do the work for teaching. And so we talk about this all the time here on this radio show, and I absolutely agree. This petition is going around asking for anti-racist curriculum and to train teachers to be anti-racist. And so just so you are aware, there's also another movement afoot, getting school districts accountable by collecting stories from public and private education so that we can have a class action lawsuit against several school districts in the country. We are no longer playing with the 1-1 school districts here and there to try and get them to listen. I believe this is a collective effort, and so in order to get the children what is needed for them to work and thrive in this country with their teachers, we need to do something a little differently. I also want to let you know that I've had enough conversations with educators who said, you know, look, we are accustomed to teaching a certain kind of children, and then the neighborhood changed. The neighborhood changed, and we don't know what to do with these children. We don't like their parents don't show up to anything. And so there's a mindset amongst way too many teachers that says if a child comes in of a different hue and their parents are not known in the community, that there's going to be a problem. And so we have to change how we think about those students, because if you've already made up your mind before they come into school, then what can we do with them, right? What can happen for them at that point? So, yeah, moving right along. The Supreme Court rules that Manhattan District Attorney can obtain Trump's taxes. The Supreme Court this morning upheld a prosecutor's demand for President Donald Trump's tax returns as a part of a criminal investigation that includes hush money payments to women who claim they had affairs with the president. The court ruled 7-2 in a case which it heard arguments by telephone in May because of the coronavirus pandemic. The records are held by Trump's longtime accounting firm, Mazars USA, which has said it would comply with the court order. It will probably be at least several weeks before the court issues a formal judgment that would trigger the turnover of records. This is a developing story. I got that from WHYY. Wait, I have to keep track of the time because, you know, I can go on and on. All right, so the Supreme Court also ruled that the Supreme Court contraception ruling would disproportionately affect low-wage workers. Women's health care and economic mobility suffered a potentially enormous blow on Wednesday when the United States Supreme Court ruled in favor of a Trump administration regulation expanding the scope of employers that are exempt from the Affordable Care Act mandate to provide free birth control to workers. The court ruled 7-2 that any privately held company can legally deny employees contraception if that employer objects to birth control on religious or moral grounds. Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Sonia Sotomayor dissented. Pregnancy prevention is just one reason women use birth control. It is also used for healthcare purposes ranging from reduction of menstrual pain to treatment of acne and endometriosis. The ACA included the contraception mandate at the advice of an expert panel on preventive care that deemed it essential. A large body of literature indicates that increased access to contraception decreases the chance of women will live in poverty. When they have affordable birth control, women attain higher levels of education and earn more in the labor force. There's a lot going on out here, and so we keep talking about people keep having babies and keep having babies, but if we don't have birth control readily available and at no cost to people, then we're going to have a problem. Right now, we've had people talking on this radio show about young girls and women right here in Philadelphia, not in the continent of Africa, who are not able to afford their menstrual pads every single month. And so we have to think outside of the boxes and outside of ourselves, right? It says the burdens that are disproportionately borne by low wagers, often workers of color who rely on employer-provided plans and would not be able to afford high costs of paying for contraceptions themselves. These groups face dramatic health disparities already, and the coronavirus pandemic has only exacerbated those inequities. And so we have to think about that as we move along. Speaking of coronavirus, there's lots happening there too. I need us to really pay attention. So I'm hearing from school teachers who are saying that they're very afraid of school opening in the fall, that when they're looking at their school district plans of how they're going to manage students 2 days on, 3 days off, what about them being exposed to children who could be asymptomatic carriers of the virus, and that they have elderly parents at home, or they have spouses, or they themselves are in a high-risk category. And so they're wondering, how is this going to work? And the fact that the other teachers who have students, children themselves, what are they doing with the 3 days that their children are home but they have to go to work, kind of thing. And so we're concerned, and I pulled up this from the New York Times, where an Iowa school district suspended its in-person summer school program this week after an outbreak of fevers. Fort Benning, an Army base in Georgia, had a coronavirus outbreak shortly after recruits arrived, and multiple sports teams have had to halt practices after either athletes or other employees got sick. All of these recent cases make it clear that reopening is not simply a matter of declaring it to be so. Opening safely during a pandemic and being able to stay open requires planning carefully and usually spending significant amount of money to pay for the testing, cleaning, and new social distancing procedures. Across the political spectrum, there has been calls for the reopening of United States schools this fall, and understandably so. Remote learning went very badly in the spring. An autumn without in-person school would leave students further behind and leave many parents without childcare again. The good news is that the experience in other countries suggests that it may be possible to reopen schools. Germany, Denmark, and others have done so without causing a big new virus outbreak, as President Trump noted yesterday. But those other countries have taken 2 steps that the United States has not. 1, they have first reduced the overall rate of few infections to low levels. Germany reported 35 new cases per every million residents over the past week. The U.S. had almost 1,100. The Times updates this map every day, tracking the virus around the world. 2, some of those other countries have allocated new money for schools, as heard after surveying some of my Times colleagues around the world. Hong Kong is covering the cleaning costs for all its schools, Bella Hong told me. South Korea is helping schools open daycare centers from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. or longer, Si Hyung Lee, who's based in Seoul, said. Germany is subsidizing laptop purchases for low-income students to help them combine remote and in-person learning, according to Christopher Schulz in Berlin. And Italy has sent money to schools to pay for more teachers, student desks, masks, and other equipment. Elisabetta Provolito, a reporter in Rome, told me. The U.S., by contrast, is suffering through by far the worst coronavirus outbreak of any affluent country, and the federal government has done little to help schools reopen. Paul Roma, a Nobel Prize-winning economist, told me that the reopening of U.S. schools was feasible, but would require huge amounts of additional testing, as well as mask wearing, social distancing, and keeping windows open. And in a related report, President Trump defined the advice of scientists, criticized the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for recommending. Do I have a call? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Okay. Joe from Germantown, how are you?
Good afternoon, Sister Andrea, and your wonderful producer, young lady Brianna. How y'all doing?
We're good. What can I do for you, sir?
Well, I don't mean it was good shows. I love your energy level, Sister Andrea. You always prep me. You make me get more energy even when I'm tired. When this heat wears me down, I'll be out. Because a lot of times I have my radio with me when I be down. He's Indian, and he has a newsstand in Lowry downtown. I would be hanging with him. I had to keep WRD on my radio with me, and I'd listen to you and the other hosts during the day. And your energy always peps me up because a lot of times the heat wears me out when I be down there hanging with him and stuff. But just when you hear your voice, Sister, you just pep me up, I'll tell you.
Oh, well, thank you, man. Keep listening, right? Because I'm talking about all sorts of good things, not just about what's happening in Philadelphia, but what's happening around the world. It is very important to me that our WRD listeners hear what is happening and understand that, things can be better here if we would just take a breath and figure out what we're doing, and that we're working in accordance with the policies and laws and procedures with our senators and or Congress people. And we need to pay attention to those who are not doing anything to help the people and vote them out of office. So that's why I keep talking about this stuff. It's so good to hear your voice, though, okay?
And I love you for saying it, Sister Andrea, because like I always tell people over the years, and I close with this and stuff. See, we have they don't care about what happened overseas. You should never say that, because what happens overseas is ultimately going to affect the black man and black woman in America.
Yes.
So when you see when you see Trump talking about putting Mexican children in cages and bombing Venezuela, it's going to soon hit your doorstep. At the very least, or the very worst, you'll have your black sons and daughters are fighting and killing black people of color look like you. So never take that attitude, because when this man unleashes madness on the world, believe me, it's going to eventually hit black people's doorsteps. So that's why I speak against it, and I denounce it every chance I get. And lastly, I was over in Egypt back in 2000. I told the Egyptian people over there, I told Egyptian men and women, and sisters and brothers I met, some darker than me, some lighter than me, but I told them, I said, look, I live in America. I don't control American foreign policy, but I want to let you know I don't agree with their racist, imperialist, white supremacy foreign policy. I said, I'll do my best. I fight against it. I must be clear to them that I live in America, but I don't agree with their racist policies towards people of color around the world. And they appreciated me saying that to them, Sister Andrea.
Yeah, Joe, it's so awesome hearing from you. Thank you for calling, okay?
You're welcome.
All right. It is hot as fish grease. Listen, I'm slowly trying to take this thing off that I'm wearing, because Lord have mercy. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message. I'm asking for your support and to join our team. We need a leader to unite this country. We need a leader who will push an agenda to move everyone forward, to allow every American the opportunity to share in this country's prosperity. Someone who will lead, but also who will listen. Someone we can be proud of. I promise you this election isn't about me. It's about you, your family, your community, and our country. The moment has come for our nation to deal with systemic racism, to deal with the denial of the promise of this nation to so many. It's time to make healthcare a right, not a privilege. It's time to give every student the opportunity to get a good education, no matter what their zip code is. And it's time to give workers the pay and dignity they deserve. This is the United States of America, and there's nothing we cannot do if we do it together.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Warning. If you're drowning in debt you can't afford, do not let the credit card companies trick you into thinking that you have to pay it all back, because you don't. What the credit card companies don't want you to know is that there's actually a way to get debt-free without paying off your entire debt or going bankrupt. If you have $10,000 or more in credit card debt, you have the right to let us settle that debt for a fraction of what you owe. For free information, call Credit Associates now. 1-800-965-5269. We'll even show you how much money you could save. If you can't afford to pay off all your debt, do not let the credit card companies trick you into thinking that you have to. Call Credit Associates for free information on how to get debt-free faster than you ever thought possible, without debt consolidation or bankruptcy. We depend on your success and offer a guarantee, so there's no risk to call. For free information, call now. 1-800-965-5269. That's 1-800-965-5269. 1-800-965-5269.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. It is, does it say 90 degrees? It's not. Listen, y'all, it is so hot. I am so hot. I thought at first it was a hot flash because Mobile only looks cute. She is not as young as you want to think that she is. And so, but I'm telling you, it is just, it's humid and sweltering in here. I'm trying to get myself together. Anyway, we're carrying on because I need to send some things to you here. Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, a Republican former education secretary, has said, and hold on, Imani, I'm going to get you in a second, has said he favors $50 billion to $75 billion in new federal funding to help schools. In May, House Democrats passed a bill with $58 billion in aid of public schools, and the Senate has not taken up the bill. So once the House passes it and the Senate just kind of lets it sit there in the Senate graveyard, the New York school system, the nation's largest, plans to bring back students 1 to 3 days per week. I'm telling you, I don't know how this is going to work. The closure of schools is a national emergency requiring mobilization at every level. Michelle Goldsberg, a Times opinion columnist, said on one new episode of the Argument podcast. Ross Duhat called the lack of action an example of American society indifference and lack of concern for families and kids. I don't know what is it going to take for us to realize that when we let things roll down the hill, it continues to pick up steam until we find ourselves in a miserable situation. Imani from Germantown, are you there?
Yes.
How are you?
Hi, Ms. Sanders. How are you?
I'm good. You don't sound so good. You all right?
Whew, I wanted to give you some. I want to give you some inspiration that if you get some Reynolds wrap, make Reynolds wrap curtains. Mm-hmm. Look, I'm talking about free air conditioning. Okay.
Okay.
And look, the sun come up on the east, so you want to have your windows closed and drapes drawn. You get some sun blocking drapes. That's good to draw. You know, make close the drapes and you can put that Reynolds wrap on the Reynolds wrap curtains and pretty them up. Learn how to sew. And so and then you could put strings on them. And then it will bring down your temperature. To help you to stay cool and get together and to make memorable, heartfelt Afro love. I love you, beautiful spirit.
Thank you, sweetie. Thank you so much.
God bless.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. All right. If you want to call in, 215-634-8065. I'd love to hear from you. I did, yesterday was Wednesday. So after being on the air on Tuesday, I drove to Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church and to collect some fruit for some of my neighbors. My husband put them in bags. We've been giving them away too, which is so cool. And when I got there, there were so many people lines and lines and lines of cars. I did get to see Pastor Walla. I heard that he was back on social media apologizing for the way things went there because it was such a process, and they had some food left over. And so I was talking to a friend of mine about the fact that he got on the line and apologized and took ownership for it. And I said, and we both said, that is leadership. She said, when he did that, I was like, yes, that's the pastor saying, my people did what I asked them to do, and so I'm taking ownership for this. From what I'm hearing, and Pastor Waller will let me know somewhere down the line, Enon gives out food Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. On Wednesdays it's fruit, but Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, I believe it's fresh produce. But I'll ask Pastor Waller when I talk to him again and let him know and let you all know, okay? But they're giving away a ton of food, which is, we'll need. And for those of you who may end up having extra and excess, I'm going to tell you this: either can it and preserve it or freeze it, because we're coming up on a time and that when fall comes around again, when we won't be able to do a lot of these things, and we don't want to take advantage of the free food that we're getting right now. All right, so there's another crisis in Puerto Rico. The pandemic has severely damaged Puerto Rico's economy. At least 300,000 Puerto Ricans, which equals to about 30% of the civilian labor force, have filed unemployment claims linked to the pandemic, and many other people are ineligible for aid because they are part of the island's large informal economy. economy. And the large informal economy simply means this. You are working, you are selling, tambourines on the side of the street. You're selling fajitas on the side of the street. You don't have a regular job. You are doing stuff like that to manage, to help your families. And so, when you're for people like that, they're ineligible. Pastor Waller talked about that too, because we have people like that here in Philadelphia. And so the city is working out some sort of funding to put cash in the hands of those folks. The economy has already been struggling before the virus hit because of Hurricane Maria, the government's bankruptcy, and a series of earthquakes in January. And let me tell you, 2 minutes after I took off from leaving Puerto Rico in January, I went there for my birthday. The first major earthquake hit, and they have been having earthquake after earthquake ever since. It is heartbreaking, and they were already struggling, right? They were struggling with bankruptcy when I got married in 2015, and their taxes went through the ceiling. But we went back anyway because we wanted to support the people of Puerto Rico. In other virus developments, the United States set another daily record for confirmed new virus cases. More than 59,400 people were confirmed with the virus in one day. The top health official said in Tulsa, Oklahoma, suggested that a surge that was connected to the indoor rally that President Trump held last month. This was just in Tulsa. 59,400 people tested positive for the virus in one day in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Frontline medical workers are facing a problem many had hoped would be resolved by now, a shortage of respirator masks, isolation gowns, and disposable gloves. I'm telling you, people, start stocking up. People don't know. So let's say there were 6,000 people at the indoor rally that President Trump had. Those 6,000 people went home to their families, went back to work, and now in one day, Tulsa, Oklahoma, set a record of 59,400 confirmed new cases. This is what we mean when we're saying it. Even if you are asymptomatic and you have no symptoms whatsoever, you can pass this virus on to people and it could be a deadly thing for those people. Theme parks in Japan have banned screaming on roller coasters because it spreads coronavirus, the Wall Street Journal reports, and advised riders, please scream inside your heart. How about just don't get on a roller coaster altogether? The Supreme Court delivered twin 7-2 rulings favoring to private religious institutions yesterday. One ruling broadened religious schools exemption from federal employment. What? One ruling broadened religious schools exemption from federal employment discrimination law. The other upheld Jesus. So what this means, if I'm reading this correctly, is that if you work for a private institution, that they would not be held accountable for the federal employment discrimination law. So they can discriminate against you and you will have a problem. So before you go working for religious schools, make sure you know what you're doing, okay? Because certain things that can affect you. In Egypt, scream inside your heart. Can you imagine, Azeb? In Egypt, a 21-year-old university student was arrested just days after dozens of women shared accusation of sexual assault and harassment on social media. The news media, which the government heavily influences, and a top Islamic clerical body have largely supported the women. It is a remarkable term for Egypt, where sexual harassment and assault are woefully common, and victims are afraid to speak out for fear they themselves could be blamed. Delcon Walsh, the Times Cairo bureau chief, writes. Woody, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Woody. How are you?
Oh, I could have been doing a whole lot better if I could have talked last week. I couldn't even call you.
Why
I went to mopping up the floor, and I put all the leftover chemicals in the one thing, and I forgot I've added the wrong thing, and I inhaled it, and it burnt my vocals. I couldn't talk at all. So now I'm able to talk. I said, boy, I got to at least say hello, have a nice day, because when I couldn't call you, I was listening, though. Oh. And I still did my exercises. I was doing my riding. Yeah. I heard you did 20 miles, so I threw in 28 on my bicycle. And I said, well, I can't let it outdo me, so I'm going to add a few more. And that almost killed me, too.
Let me tell you something, Woody. Riding that bicycle and riding it on inclines is, nothing. My legs feel like steel traps now. Yep. I did 15 miles this morning, 15.2 miles. I'm working my way back up to 20 because the 20 almost killed me.
Well, I'm going to go back to 20 again because I did 28. Knowing that you did 20, I said I'm going to do 28, and I said I'm going to slow it down. But, yeah, I just Wanted to let you know I wasn't able to talk, and all my customers, they were having a problem they didn't understand. But watch what chemicals you mix when you're mopping the floors or cleaning up with all this virus stuff. I'm just trying to keep everything clean, but you can't inhale that stuff because it'll go right into your throat, and I got a chemical burn in my vocals.
What chemicals did you inhale, Woody? Do you know?
Well, I can tell you, I mixed. There's a lady that cleans for me. She mixed some stuff, and I don't know what it was. So I just poured all that in the bottle, and I added my own ammonia. I added Mr. Clean.
Lord, Woody, you're trying to kill yourself, Woody? You trying to kill yourself, sir?
I just wanted to get rid of any germs. At the end of the day, I said, let me do that. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know why you didn't hear from me last week. But all good. I wanted to leave you my number. I can leave it with her because I know you said you.
You know what, Woody? I have your number, and I started to call you on my way into the studios last Tuesday.
Well, I wouldn't have been able to talk to you.
See. So
it's all good.
I'll call you. I do have your number. You and another person left your number, and so. But Woody, when you see my phone number, it is not to be shared with Lottie Dottie and everybody. You understand?
Everything in my shop is old-fashioned. I can't see your phone number.
What?
Anyway.
Well, praise the Lord in these fecunded streets.
I'm only telling you, when you come here, it's like going back in time. So when I think about you, I've got an old sewing machine here. My mother and father were in the cleaning business. My mother and father were tailors as well. So when you were talking about making your own clothes, I'm saying, wow, she does that too.
I design all my clothes. Someone sews. My husband says, Woody, that I look 20 years younger than him. In fact, I really do not look my age, right? And so he's sick and tired of telling people that I'm middle-aged, that I'm in my mid-50s. Like, you know, people like look at him like he's crazy. So he's going to get a T-shirt that says she really is older than she looks. So part of that is genealogy, and part of that, Woody, is just really taking good care of myself. You hear me talk about exercising, you know, really eating the right things, you know, and you want to hear something else? Treating people well. When you treat people well, Woody, it really shows on your whole countenance, right? And so I'm going to come visit your shop.
Love your neighbor as you
love yourself.
Those
absolutely.
Basic old fundamentals is still working today, and that's the key to health. Period.
I agree, Woody. So let me tell you, stop mixing up them chemicals here.
No, I won't do that again.
Okay.
But I'll listen for you. I'll look out to hear from you.
Okay, yeah. Right. Talk to you soon. All right, Woody. Bye-bye. Is there anybody else on the line? We're good? All right. So layoffs stuck at high level as 1.3 million seek jobless aid. More than 1.3 million Americans applied for, this was the Associated Press, written by Christopher Rugaber, July 9th, today. More than 1.3 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits last week, a historically high pace that shows many employers are still laying off people in the face of the resurgent coronavirus. The persistently elevated level of layoffs occurring as a spike in virus cases has forced 6 states to reverse their move to reopen businesses. Those 6, Arizona, California, Colorado, Michigan, Florida, and Texas, make up 1/3 of the United States economy. 15 other states have suspended their reopenings. Collectively, the pullback has stalled a tentative recovery in the job market and is likely triggering additional layoffs. Thursday's report from the Labor Department showed that the number of applications for unemployment aid fell from 1.4 million in the previous week. The figure has now topped 1 million for 16 straight weeks. Before the pandemic, the record high for weekly unemployment applications were fewer than 700,000. The total number of people who are receiving jobless benefits dropped 700,000 to 18 million. That suggests that some companies are continuing to rehire workers. An additional 1 million people sought benefits last week under a separate program for self-employed and gig workers that has made them eligible for aid for the first time. These figures aren't adjusted for seasonal variation, so the government doesn't include them in the official count. Americans are seeking unemployment aid against the backdrop of a disturbing surge in confirmed viral cases, which increases reported in 38 states. Lord have mercy. Case counts especially accelerated in 4 states that now account for more than half of the reported new United States cases: Arizona, California, Florida, and Texas. My son is getting married in Texas on Saturday. I cannot fly there. I just want you all to know that you are impacting more than you would even know. So when you're sitting around, running around, talking about, I can do what I want to do, and I'm going here, and I'm not wearing my mask, you're impacting a lot of people. So all of us, everybody in our family has to get dressed up and watch his wedding via Zoom. We miss him. He did get a ton of gifts, though. For those of us who weren't able to fly and spend money on hotels and crashing in his house. We spent the money on sending his gifts. So anything he could possibly want. I told him he should have put his Tesla on there and a stove. He said, "Mommy, if I could, I would." Because we're all just feeling so badly that we can't be there, but we're being responsible adults and recognizing that going to Texas means that if we go there, we're, one, exposing ourselves to the virus, and two, exposing other people who could be in our family to the virus, and three, when we come back to our respective homes, we would have to quarantine for 14 days. Responsibility says that we just don't do it, right? So that's where we are. It's been an interesting time. Where am I now? So, Lord, I'm telling you, mother had a lot going on. This I gotta tell you all. New York City gives at-risk seniors air conditioning units, and Philly asked them to find relief in a neighbor's home. I almost passed out when I saw this. Gloria and Hugo Neves, 83 and 91, had a plan for weathering the extreme heat that's afflicted the city over the last week. Hunkered down in their Huntington Park home and turn on their 5 fans. That is not good. The couple, who counts several health conditions between them, including asthma, live in one of the city's hottest areas, where temperatures can climb from 22 degrees Fahrenheit higher and than wealthier and greener areas of the city. And like many of their neighbors in the predominantly Black and Latino neighborhood, they haven't had air conditioning. "We couldn't afford it," said Gloria in Spanish, referring to her air conditioning. But last week's heat put them on the edge. Gloria, who is originally from El Salvador, said her body ached. Hugo, an Argentinian immigrant, said he had trouble breathing. Both were having trouble sleeping. Finally, with the help of a friend, the couple was able to get a brand new Energy Star air conditioner unit for $246, the things we take for granted. "It would be a relief," said Gloria on Tuesday, while her husband of their home attendant and Hugo installed the window unit in their room on the second floor of the 3-bedroom row house they rent for $1,000 a month on West Lycoming Street. Hugo said his pension is about $800. He used to drive taxis, but he lost his license years ago, and the coronavirus pandemic has made it impossible for him to earn extra money, cutting grass, or doing other small jobs that in the past has helped the couple make ends meet. Like many working-class Philadelphians, air conditioning was, until Tuesday, a luxury out of reach. Yet if the Neves still lived in New York City, where they met and lived for decades, they would have been eligible to receive a free air conditioning unit from the local government, one of the 74,000 AC units New York City is providing free of charge to low-income senior residents. In May, with a hot summer rolling on top of a deadly pandemic, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, I'm at a break already, rolled out COVID-19 heat wave plan aimed at keeping vulnerable New Yorkers safe from the heat at home, since regular cooling options outside the home would not be accessible. And so while New York has processed over 25,000 requests for air conditioning units over the past month, Philadelphia has struggled to come up with a plan to proactively combat heat-related dangers. City officials say they don't have the money for a program like de Blasio's, and instead are asking residents to help one another. The plan for seniors with no access to air-conditioned spaces: visit a neighbor with air conditioning. I'm going to have to come back and finish this. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
If you want to start your morning with mindfulness, motivation, and inspiration, tune in to Daybreak with me, Helana, here on WURD Radio, Monday through Friday from 6 to 7 a.m. I'm a health and wellness coach with over 15 years experience helping people to transform their lives. On the show, we talk health and wellness 360, from getting your mind right to getting your money right. So let's rise and shine together right here on WURDradio.com, 96.1 FM, 900 on your AM dial, on Daybreak every morning.
In Pennsylvania, everyone counts, and everyone needs to participate in the census. Our population count determines our voice in government and how much federal funding our communities receive for health care, food assistance, education, transportation, housing, and more. So every infant and child, every foreign and U.S. citizen, everyone matters. For a stronger future, we all need to count. To learn more, go to pa.gov/census.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy. Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun. Call 215-425-7875. That's 215-425-7875. Come on out and become a Word Radio member one by one. Renew your membership or get a new one. Get serious information and have some fun.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. I want to continue this story about seniors in Philadelphia being told that they are to go to a neighbor's house to get cool if they can't afford air conditioning. There's a limited number of cooling centers, and it's difficult for people to get there, Health Commissioner Thomas Farley said. A cooling center may be a site where the virus could be transmitting. So that's why we're talking so much about people helping their neighbors. It's a safer way to cool, and we do think we can reach a lot of people that way, except Commissioner Farley, that if people are in their homes and trying to stay safe from this coronavirus, inviting new folks in that you don't know if they have the virus or not could possibly and potentially cause another problem. So we're going to have to figure out another way. The lack of government assistance affects working class and low-income residents who can't afford air conditioning units, higher electric bills, or a trip to the beach. In a city where economic disparities fall along racial lines, that means a disproportionate impact on Black, indigenous, and people of color. The same disparity plays out geographically, so the hottest parts of the city, Huntington Park, Point Breeze in South Philadelphia, and parts of Haddington and Cobbs Creek in West Philadelphia are home to predominantly Black and immigrant communities, according to data gathered by the city's Office of Sustainability. Hugo and Gloria said that they wouldn't feel safe leaving their home anyway and going into a neighbor's house as recommended by the city's heat plan. They moved from New Jersey about a year ago, and they really don't know their neighbors. Makes sense. And nor would their neighbors be able to accommodate given the risks of the pandemic. Makes sense again. Dionisio and Dolores Robles live a block away from the Nevas. They have air conditioners in all their rooms, but they wouldn't invite strangers into their home right now, they said. We are worried about the COVID, Dolores, who is 70 years old and suffers from diabetes, said in Spanish, sitting outside on their porch. Here, not even the family comes inside the house. When they come to bring us things, they leave it outside the door and we bring them in. Thank you, Dolores, because that's what my husband and I do. My husband says nobody's coming into our house till 2021, if they're lucky, right? So everything happens at our door, and when it comes in, it stays on the porch for at least 48 hours, unless it's something that has to go into the refrigerator, and we clean it off. Like, you can't have just random people in your house to get cool in the air conditioning. She says, I'm afraid because of my age, 83, if COVID gets me, I'm gone in a day. Farley acknowledged those concerns with warnings that since heat-vulnerable populations also have a greater risk of death if they get the coronavirus, everyone in an AC housing unit should wear a mask, stay 6 feet apart from each other, and wash their hands constantly. Depending on the circumstances, they may be far safer than having them in a group with a bunch of other people in a small place, Farley said. At a press conference last week where officials explained the limited resources available for Philadelphians without air conditioning at home, Farley laid out the daily risk that comes with heat. More people die from heat waves than hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, or floods, Farley said this year. With the added threat of the pandemic, experts say heat could be even more dangerous. Yet, because of budget and social distancing needs, the city is providing less resources for Philadelphians to stay cool than in previous years. Pools won't open, and most daily senior centers are closed. And although the city's intent is to activate 12 libraries and some senior centers as cooling centers with extended hours in case of a heat emergency, the locations are not clear yet. Lord have mercy. Philadelphia Managing Director Brian Abernathy said Mayor Jim Kenney's administration recognizes the need for extra resources to help keep people vulnerable to the heat safe. He said officials are working with nonprofits, PICO, and private entities to provide fans and other heat relief and cooling agents. Fans do nothing in major heat except create a convection oven, which creates more problems. Trust me when I tell you that. Those conversations continue. Mike Dunn, a spokesperson from the administration, said in an email. City Council just approved a budget that closes a projected $750 million deficit for the coming year, the largest potential revenue shortfall the city has ever faced. In that context, we would, of course, greatly welcome even 1/10 of the level of support for this issue that New York is fortunate to receive. Can they figure out how they receive this money and try to get the same help? The de Blasio administration created a $55 million program with help from partners. The New York City Housing Authority gave $10 million. The New York State Energy Research and Development Authority committed another $20 million. A $70 million grant came from the New York State Public Service Commission, which will help 440,000 families with their electric bills from June to October. That's what I'm talking about. By the middle of June, over 25,000 people had requested air conditioning units. Abernathy stressed the need for partners outside the city government, like the partners who supported the New York program. The city is going to do everything we can to provide the resource that our residents need and protect them from extreme heat and other emergencies as we move forward, Abernathy said, but we can't do it alone. So I'm calling on PECO and every other partner that is out there that can donate money to help these senior citizens. While pools won't open this summer, the city is operating 91 spray grounds across the city and distributing cooling kits, including umbrellas, tents, cooling rags, and misting fans for use by people on the city's 100 place streets. I don't know. Erica Almiron, former executive director of Latinx community nonprofit of Juntos and former candidate for city council, said the lack of resources allocated by the city to protect residents from heat shows how vulnerable populations are left behind. It is unfortunate that during a pandemic in our city, the people are forced to figure out how to survive. With the humidity we have had, days have reached over 100 degrees. For seniors, this is life-threatening, and so is contracting the COVID if you are older, she said. Almiron said she would never advise her father, a lung cancer survivor, to go to a neighbor's house to cool off or let anyone in at this time. If the city had decreased the police budget by the $120 million the people had asked, they would have had the money to protect our families, Almiron said. Unfortunately, this makes it abundantly clear where their priorities are. Meanwhile, PECO is not disconnecting residents who can't afford their electric bills and is suspending late payment charges. The utility is providing help by setting up flexible payment arrangements and providing information on financial assistance. But environmental justice organization Earthquaker Action Team says that is not enough because at the end of the day, people are just accumulating bills they will never be able to pay. Promising not to shut off services without forgiving missed bill payments only delays the inevitable, said Dana Robinson, a volunteer at EQUAT, in a press release by the end of June. The Pennsylvania Department of Human Services enabled the low-income home energy assistance program, LIHEAP, this summer, which provides up to $800 per household to help residents pay their energy bills. I have to tell you that I've had people complaining that the LIHEAP application is restrictive, and so lots of people, when they go to apply for it, only to find that they don't get it. So we have to look at what the income needs and requirements are for people, because I got to tell you, there are people making $34,000 to $40,000 a year who still can't afford to pay their electric bill because they have other things going on like rent. We tend to look at that, and student loans and that kind of stuff. That's not a lot of money, and so they've got to up the income level, I believe. The Nevas didn't know about the program, but Gloria said they will apply. As for the heat relief currently offered by the city, she doesn't think that she will use it now that they own an air conditioning. Leaving the house is too risky for them, she said, and walking in the heat to go to a spray ground doesn't really make sense for them. Plus, the closest one to their home is a 30-minute walk away. I am never leaving the house now, she said, smiling. And so that's the other piece that we have to think about. We assume people have cars. We assume people have money to get on the bus, right? And so I'm asking you, the same way that my husband and I are trying to help our elderly neighbors, I'm asking you, check and see who the elderly neighbors are on your street, and if you can afford to help them in one way, shape, or another. If you are someone who has the means to buy an extra air conditioning and you can afford to do so, please email me, alsanders@wordradio.com, and let's see if we can connect you with a senior that may need an air conditioning. That's how we do it, people. We don't just sit around and talk about it and then try and figure out, throw our hands in the air and hope something sticks on the way in or out. If we don't do something about this quickly, we're going to have deaths from the heat, deaths from COVID, and it's just untenable, and something that can be can be avoided at all costs. For those of us who had vacation plans and can't travel and go anywhere, can we take $246 of that money? And sometimes you can get an air conditioning for $99, depending on where you look, and buy an air conditioning for a senior and offer to give it to them. That's all I'm asking for. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Wait a minute. Malcolm White says, I have an elderly uncle in West Oak Lane. He's 87. My cousin and another friend are in the house with him. He's pretty much living in his basement to keep cool. So see, you are somebody, your elderly uncle in West Oak Lane could actually use an air conditioner, Malcolm. And so let's try and figure out how we, the people in this Philadelphia city, can start to help the seniors as we wait for them to figure out, the city to figure out how they're going to get the funding to give them free air conditioning units. And do it out of the goodness of your heart. Don't look for anything in return. And don't make a big splash about it on social media. And don't take a picture with the seniors, say, here, I gave them an air conditioning unit. Do it just to do it, okay? That makes better sense. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your drive home.
In the happy hour
With Sincerely Sarita.
Monday through Thursday, 4 till 7 p.m.
Right here
on Word Radio, 96.1 FM.
and 900 AM WURD.
Emerge is a public service announcement campaign produced by Mirror Arts Philadelphia and sponsored by the City of Philadelphia to inspire our community to emerge resilient and hopeful in the face of COVID-19 and systemic racism.
What's the plan for us? I don't know what's coming next. Coronavirus got us stuck, dealing with the stress. I'm trying to keep it patient, but I could feel it in my chest. Now the city is polluted. It's feeling like confusion. You got to pick yourself up and steady keep it moving. It's hard to watch the news. You see police, they keep on shooting. But I'm going to play my part. It's time to start the revolution. So Philadelphia, what's up, yo? We got to step it up, though. Don't worry what they say. They already know we tough, yo. These rules and regulations cannot put us in our places. I think now they see our pain. Time to emerge about this thing.
To learn more, go to mirrolarts.org/emerge. How will you emerge?
Tune in Saturdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. to hear Empire Capital and Consulting founder Mark Palmer's show titled Black Money, Black Power. This show centers around black money and how black power is derived from money. Tune in every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Black Money, Black Power, hosted by Mark Palmer.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
This is Word Radio.
96.1 FM.
And 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
Black Talk Media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. The phone lines are lit up. What is going on, Brianna? All right, let me take Juanita. Juanita, you there? Juanita?
Yes.
How are you? I hear you're willing to donate an air conditioner.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So here's what I'm going to do. I have someone here. There's a word listener on, Malcolm White, talking about his elderly uncle. I'm going to figure out how to connect the two of you so that you can get that air conditioner to his uncle. Is that all right?
Sure.
Thank you so much. All right, so when you get Brianna, go back on hold, and Brianna will take your information, and we'll make sure that you get connected, all right? Thank you so much. I fully appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Be safe. God
I
bless.
will. God bless you, too. Listen, I just put out one of the edict. Okay, you're good? All right, so... thank you all so much. You know, I just said that if we could all just try to support and give and donate an air conditioning unit, then that would be a good thing. So we already have a caller in that's willing to donate one. Malcolm, I need you to inbox me, Malcolm White, inbox me on Facebook, please, so I can connect you and this caller to make sure that air conditioner gets to your elderly uncle. All right? And that's how we do things around here. We don't sit around and wait for city government all the time. If we can afford to buy $1,500 pairs of shoes, we can afford to donate an air conditioner to a needy senior in our city. So right now, we're going to have Yuma. Yuma, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you, honey. First of all, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me read this thing that I saw in the notebook for July 2nd, and then you and I are going to have a good conversation, okay?
All right.
All right. So Masterman and Central students use slurs, tell rape jokes in a viral group chat. The article contains obscene language. Of course, I will not read the obscene language, people, because, you know, the federal government is not playing with us here. The FCC, we can't do it. But the school district of... a statement from Superintendent William Haidt issued July 1st. The School District of Philadelphia is fully committed to creating welcoming and inclusive environments for every student and staff member without exception. In addition to our work to advance equity and culturally inclusive learning and work practices, we have a zero-tolerance policy for harassment or hate speech of any kind. We will investigate all matters involving racist remarks and other hate speech in accordance with the Code of Student Conduct, the Employee Code of Conduct, Board Policies 248 and 348, which covers harassment and discrimination of students and employees, respectively. A group of freshmen and sophomore boys who attend Masterman and Central High Schools are under investigation by the Philadelphia School District and their schools' administrators after sending a long chain of messages to each other that contained racist, sexist, and anti-LGBTQ slurs. On Wednesday, an unknown individual leaked screenshots of the private group chat on Instagram. The messages have since met with an avalanche of criticism online from classmates and Masterman Central alumni. In the chats, students joked about raping women, each other, and their classmates. Wow. Wow. I cannot read this stuff. Lord have mercy, I cannot read this stuff. The school district and representatives from Masterman and Central said an investigation is ongoing into the students' conduct. The screenshots were reported to the administration on Wednesday, which was yesterday. Central President Timothy McKenna said in a letter to parents that he's using the school's harassment policy to guide him through the investigation. The policy says that the school prohibits any harassment on the basis of race, religion, gender, national origin, and sexual orientation, among other categories. It is unclear whether the messages qualify as harassment because they were sent in a private... Lord, here we go. The students who sent the messages have received no punishment, but administrators at Masterman and Central had a meeting on Friday to identify all students involved and to discuss appropriate disciplinary action. So, Yuma, thank you so much for joining us. Let me read up who you are. You are, I'm going to see, Diabira. Is that your last name? Diabira. Yuma Diabira is a rising senior at Central High School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and the current president of Central's African American Student Union. I want to thank you for joining me. Evan Burton called me in the middle of my trying to figure out, after reading an article about Central. And he said that you would be a great person to talk to. So thank you for joining us and the WURD listeners.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So tell us, what in the Sam Hill is happening? And I'm glad to talk to you, Yuma, because I really want to talk to the students themselves, right? People who are currently in Central. The things that we're reading online, can you corroborate this? It says here in the article that black students at Central High and some faculty call for overall admission, school policies, and increased equity. Oh, Yuma, you are in this article. Yuma.
Which article?
This is the article that was written by Dale and Nina Hagan from the Notebook, July 8th. Yes. Yes. So Yuma and Mariam Cisco said they have grown used to racism at the elite Philadelphia school. They describe Central's anti-blackness as covert but ugly and palpable. Most of the time, they said it comes up casually, though it doesn't make it any less painful. I was accused of cheating on a quiz because my score was too high, Diabira said. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here. Yuma, I interviewed an alumni of Central last week and wrote an article about it called Being Black in Public and Private Education for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun. And she said essentially the same thing, that she tested into the honors math class and the math teacher at Central gave her such a hard time, it made no sense. Right? And said that because you come from a neighborhood school, who do you think you are? And her mother said, I paid $30,000 a year for her to go to Germantown Friends School, and at which point the teacher did an about face but continued to downplay the qualifications of the black students. Fast forward, the year later, she tested into the honors classes again, and her mother had to fight her to take the class because she had another teacher, another math teacher, this time a black teacher, who did the same exact thing. What is going on over there, Yuma?
So, I mean, I will say that, Central is very diverse. Definitely one of the most diverse schools in the school district. That's something that we usually pride ourselves on. But what you're finding more and more is a lot of ignorant kids who are coming in and I'm guessing haven't really been exposed to people of other ethnicities, of other sexualities, and they're expressing really homophobic and racist things and saying stuff like that. And because of, it could just be one line in the handbook that could make them not guilty. So people are feeling as if students who are being discriminatory are not getting any consequences for their actions. For me, I would say that I've experienced a few racial things, but for the most part, it's been collectively, like as a group, where stuff has been brought up, and it's been racial stuff that's been done to people as a group at Central.
So explain more of that for me, done collectively as a group. Explain that to me.
So we have a showcase every year for Black History Month. My first year, we had the showcase, and every year there's problems. They try to tell us our music isn't cultural enough to dance to, or our dances are inappropriate. They censor our speech by our poets, so our poets cannot say certain things in their speeches that will be seen as controversial. So stuff like that, basically. And then the next year, they try to only give performances to 11th and 12th graders and take the show away from 9th and 10th graders. And we were explaining to them that that's exactly how a lot of this ignorance happens, because we're not teaching, the kids are not being taught, and being exposed to these different things. So it's a lot of, Central is not blatantly racist, as mentioned in the article. It's a lot of stuff under the surface that goes on that is racist.
Okay. It says in 10th grade, this is Sissoko, right?
Yeah.
Sissoko. In 10th grade, I had an afro, and a teacher said to me, this was a white teacher, when I stick my finger in a socket, my hair gets like that, said Sissoko, who graduated last month. It just made me feel so uncomfortable. So those are those microaggressions that students talk about. The Abir and Sissoko are now leading an effort by students, faculty, and alumni from Central, one of the most selective high schools in the city, to demand big changes in admissions, policies, curricula, and staff training to increase black enrollment and end what they refer to as the school's culture of racism. So Yuma, Central President Tim Kenna, the school's principal, pledged to implement the students' demands in a statement sent to the Notebook on Wednesday evening. Student voice is critical when you are leading a school. I hear that your principal is pretty good. Is that true?
Yes, he is. He's great.
Yes.
Anything we give to him, he responds to. One thing, he has an open door policy, so any issues that I've had, I've been able to walk into his office. There's no list, there's no sign up. He's walking, we let him know what's going on, and he adjusts it to the best of his abilities. So I think he's pretty good.
Yeah.
But we crafted 10 demands, and we crafted 10 demands. Me and a bunch of other students. Some of those students include Miriam Sissoko, who's mentioned in there, Taylor Street, Mariah Hudson, as well as some of our faculty members who helped us to create these demands of what we need from Central for Black students to continue to come into this environment and feel respected and feel safe.
So tell me what those 10 demands are.
All right, so our first demand is to review the disciplinary decisions made for Black students. As you know, in all school districts, Black students are disproportionately suspended. They're definitely reviewed more harsh when it comes to problems that happen within a school. So we put that in there. Within the next week, we got a new dean. So that's how our principal has been working with us. He responds to us immediately. The second one was to terminate the censoring of student voice during our African American Student Showcase, International Day and Home Selection. A lot of times during our Central has International Day because we're such a diverse school. But what's been happening in the recent years is telling Black students that their food and their performances and their clothing is not cultural.
Wow.
So that's what's been happening, telling students that they can't bring in mac and cheese because it's not cultural. Anybody can eat that. Anybody can make that.
Who is doing that? Are the teachers doing this?
So it's people who are, I would say, in higher positions. You know, Central also has a lot of clubs. We have over 100 clubs. So basically, the people who oversee these student-led clubs. So like SA student association sponsors, people like that. People who are overseeing this or saying stuff like that. Stage crew director who has to listen to all the music and watch the performances, that stuff like that.
That makes absolute sense to me. It's not just happening at Central. It happens in other places, and that's why we've had to really step in the gap and find places for students of color to give them a voice so that they could step up and ask for what they need. This is insane. What is your third one?
To include more support to level out inequality and equity in order to achieve the goal. So in order for us to do this, we asked for a summer bridge program to support underprivileged students who may have not been prepared for their previous school, who may have not been prepared by their previous school for the rigor of Central. A lot of our Black kids are coming from neighborhood schools. They meet the requirements. They deserve to be here. But they weren't prepared academically to go into Central. And Central has this sink or swim culture. And a lot of times, you'll find that some of these Black kids are thinking because no one is helping them. And I mean, I know for me, I had a pretty smooth transition. I actually went to Masterman, so I've been at both schools. And so it was a little easier for me, but for a lot of kids, it's not that way.
Okay.
So we asked for that. We also asked and the Summer Bridge program is implemented. It starts August 1st. That was one of our demands that he jumped ahead and started getting that ready too with some teachers to organize that. So right now we have about, I think, 45 kids enrolled. And then we also asked to launch a Black middle state, which would be similar to a Big Brother, Big Sister program, a Big Brother, Little Brother program. So like a mentorship program for upperclassmen and lowerclassmen who are Black to basically be working with each other so that it can be a much smoother transition.
Yes.
My fourth demand was to recruit Black and brown students for advanced classes.
Yes.
We offer a whole bunch of honors, AP, IB classes, and you won't see a lot of Black kids in those classes. And it's not, again, because they don't meet the criteria. It's because they're not being reached out to, because we have testing that will be after school, and a lot of working class kids have jobs after schools, are in sports after schools, and they won't be able to stay after school to take these tests. And one thing that was pointed out by Miriam Sissoko was some of the stuff is as easy as sending out an email. They target the white kids to take these classes. They'll email you like, oh, I think you'll really be good for this. And they don't do that for the Black students very often.
So they pick and choose who they want to acknowledge to getting to certain things.
Yes.
Okay. I did hear that from Atumala, last week. Okay, what else? What's number 5?
Expand the curriculum of history and English classes to include African-American achievements and for us to read African-American authors. Basically, expanding the curriculum but beyond Martin Luther King.
Yes.
And beyond slavery. It's at this point, it's not acceptable. It's absolutely not. People are sitting in classrooms and you go a whole year and you learn about slavery, you watch films on slavery. There's way more to African American history from before slavery and after, and that's not sufficient anymore.
That's right. What's number 6?
It's to refine school events to be more accessible to Black families. So an example of this would be like parent-teacher conferences, having them at different times versus on half days at 12 p.m. A lot of working-class families can't take off the whole day of work to come in for a 12 p.m. report card conference. They want to be involved in their students' lives, but a lot of the times the times are barriers for them. And it comes across as less participation among Black families. And it's not that. They physically cannot be there for the time. So basically to extend time periods, give different slots and different things so that people of working class families can attend.
Brilliant. What is number 7, Yuma?
Address implicit biases within the community. So within the school community, so we are asking to hold seminars for teachers during professional development about race and inclusion to be led by students. So teachers to know what they're doing from students.
Come on.
Hold seminars for students during open advisory to address racism and inclusion, and hold students and teachers accountable for the stuff that they say and the things that they do, and keep documentation of their violations.
You know what? I have said this. I've been saying this for years, that young people, you are the ones you are the change. I'm telling you, because everything that you're talking about now, Yuma, adults have asked so nicely. Can we please? And then they've taken the excuses. They go in a corner. They grumble to themselves, and then they do nothing. It works for Philadelphia. It works for the school systems because when you do it privately, Yuma, then they don't really have to do anything about it, right? And so you look around and time goes by. When you're asking publicly what that looks like, then they become afraid, and really you have to hold them accountable. Please know this is happening in many school districts where students are being told, stop doing this publicly, we'll handle it privately. And I told those students, don't you?
We've tried that.
Yes, And I told those students, I said, don't you dare. You continue to publicly speak up about this because it's the only way you're going to get change, right? You're asking for things that are common sense. History, African American history. We have been saying this for decades. Why are we still learning about the same 4 or 5 people that are palpable to you? Why are you not talking about the 35-year-old that created one of the best cars that Chrysler ever made, right? The young man that is smarter than Bill Gates, his IQ is off the chain. There's so much history, Black history. And then we have so many Black books on Black people that you can buy now and you can Google, that there really should be no excuses. So when you say something like, well, we have to wait for 5 more years before we change the curriculum, that is hogwash. And so I want you all to continue to keep the pressure on them. What is number 8?
Number 8 is to hire more Black teachers and faculty. So right now we're at under 30%. Right now we're trying to reach 30% or more Black teachers. And then also to restructure the teacher hiring committee. I know for Central, the teacher hiring committee includes teachers, students, and parents when we hire our teachers. But a lot of these people on the panel are not Black students. They're not students of color. They're white students, white parents. Or they'll have one token Black student. And that's why we keep getting teachers that are doing things that are not okay. I've been in the school district for 12 years, and I've only had 3 Black teachers in my life.
What's number 9?
To create a Black student recruiting team to reach out to primarily Black middle schools during the high school application process. Because right now, Central's Black population is under 20%. About 5 years ago, we were over 30%, and now we're under 20%. So that's a big deal. A lot of these kids a lot of the Black kids that we're not getting in Central anymore are kids that are in neighborhood schools, and their schools are not even exposing them to schools like Central and Masterman, Colombo, ENS. They're not even exposing them to these schools. And then they tell us stuff like they don't see race when they do applications, almost as if to say that Black students were only selected because they were Black.
Right. Wow. And number 10.
Is to recruit more Black orientation leaders. So at Central, we get about 650 kids each class, each grade. So we have orientation leaders who kind of get the kids familiar with the school when they first get there, what to expect, how to navigate, what to join. There aren't Black orientation leaders. So a lot of these kids are coming in and they're feeling lost. They don't have any support. So that was our 10th and final demand.
So let me ask you this. This is beautiful. I wrote them all down. I think you I'm going to share this stuff with students in other school districts, in public schools, so that they can see what your demands are and see if they can request some of these similar things. What do you say to the student? Because I was talking to a parent last week who said her child does not want to go back to Central. Is not feeling comfortable there, is becoming more reclusive each day that the child is there. What do you say, what advice do you have for a student like that is feeling incredibly uncomfortable in that environment right now?
Join clubs and keep working together. A lot of people I've met have just been from, having these clubs. Central has a lot of clubs, period, but we do have a lot of black clubs.
Mm-hmm.
African American Student Union, United Pan African Organization, Black Youth Coalition, Caribbeans in Action, Good for the Soul, which is a black mental health club. So we're getting more of these things, and I would say join this, work with these people, and we have to apply pressure. I mean, this is we dropped this like maybe a week ago, and half of our demands are already being answered.
You better go ahead. You better go ahead, Yuma. In 1 week.
Yeah, I mean, and that's because we do have a president that is listening to us. He is working with us. When we first dropped him, he gave us a call to let us know some of this, that he would be working this entire summer to get all of these demands in place. And I can say that he hasn't given me any empty promises so far. Everything that he said he has done.
This is Mr. McKenna, correct?
Yes.
And so when I shout out to principal, to the leader, because I'm telling you, I give credit where credit is due. Got a phone call about him today that says he's literally been stepping in the gap. Every time the students go to him, he's supporting and helping. He also, though, has an issue with some of the staff that's there, right? So he's not going to be able to do it on his own. So what you all want to do, as he's continuing to do what he needs to do to get you guys where you need to be, you have to start writing down everything, making sure that you have times, dates, details of what the infraction is, and keep giving him consistently so that he knows what to do. Because the way it works with educators is that you have to, there's a chain of disciplinary action that they have to go through before you can get rid of them, right? But you have to be consistent. And then the students who are afraid to open their mouths and say anything, the leaders, the student leaders, have to go to them and say, we can help you. Teach us, tell us what happened, and we'll help you to craft, going to the leader to have your conversation. Because what you are doing is absolutely beautiful. And I hope every young student in every school district that is listening to this radio show right now will understand what is possible. I had a Zoom meeting last week, Yuma, with some students from another public school, and it was the same thing. They're like, we don't know what to do. I said, do this, do this, do that. You all are perfect. This is wonderful.
And this is not a central issue. This is a district
issue. It is.
That's what we need people to understand.
It is a public education issue, Yuma. Hold on 1 second. I have to take a quick break, okay? I have another question for you. Can you hold on 1 second for me, please?
Yes, I can.
All right. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Check out the Source lineup on Word Radio. Mondays, get ready for the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith. On Tuesdays, it's Andrea Lawful Sanders. Then on Wednesdays, it's the Black Women's Leadership Council. On Thursdays, it's a second helping of Andrea Lawful Sanders. And on Fridays, it's Tiffany Bacon. Don't miss the Source. Monday through Thursday, 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. and Fridays, 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
1 in 23 will be diagnosed with colorectal cancer in their lifetime, yet more than 60% of deaths from colorectal cancer could be avoided with preventative screening. A colonoscopy can save your life. Skip the pre-visit and schedule your screening directly at einstein.edu/colon. Colon cancer is preventable. Learn more at einstein.edu/colon. The Fresh Grocer of Monument Road now has even more to offer their customers. This Fresh Grocer location now has online shopping, so you can skip the hassle of going into the store. With convenient options of delivery right to your door or curbside pickup, they will do the shopping for you. You can get started at thefreshgrocer.com or by downloading the Fresh Grocer app on your mobile device.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. I'm having a riveting conversation with Yuma, who is the African-American, let me just make sure because I can't stand messing up people's stuff. I just want to make sure that I do this right. Yuma is a rising senior at Central High School in Philadelphia and the current president of Central's African American Student Union. The conversation is riveting, Yuma. People are texting me. They're on Facebook saying these statements are so important, and I'm extremely happy that students are using their voices and their power for change. My niece graduated from Central, and the microaggressions were unbelievable. Yuma, we have some alumni coming on shortly in about 5 minutes, and what is your messaging for them? Are they stepping up in the gap to help you at all?
They are. I would tell them to keep supporting us. They've been doing that. We got over 1,000 signatures on the alumni-made document. Yeah, just to keep supporting us, keep applying that pressure, keep donating. We raised over $6,000 in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So I would say to just keep doing that. Just keep standing behind us. Because they see it. They see that unity.
They see that unity. To the people in Central who are complicit in these conversations, in these things, when the teacher's talking about, when I stick my hands in the socket, the micro and the macroaggressions, what would you say to them? What message would you have for them?
They have to change their thinking, or they got to get out. I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, we can't keep letting students. We're still supposed to be a safe place. We can't keep letting students come in and feel
unsafe.
like they're not safe in these environments. Teachers don't discuss politics. I mean, we shouldn't really have any teachers in our school that are feeling racist or homophobic anyway. It's not the kind of teachers that we need. So it's not acceptable at this point.
You know what? Someone just texted me and said, this could easily be a handbook. This is how brilliant you are. Easily.
And again, I want to give the credit to the board of the African American Student Union. That's Karis Wright, who is our vice president, Tiana Allen Williams, who is our public rep, Layla Johnson, who is our secretary, and Christian Colbert, who is our treasurer. They've been working on this a lot, as well as the other people who helped the classes, Mariah Hudson, Shayla Street, Miriam Sissoko, and then our faculty who's been standing by us, our sponsor of 2 years, Jerome Crawford, Elizabeth Wesley, who's the Afro teacher at Central, Mr. Palazzolo, and Mr. Hong. They've really been working with us through this entire thing.
Can I say this to you? You have the makings of an excellent leader. What are you planning to do when you graduate from Central?
So I'm planning to go to HBCU and study education. I actually want to be a teacher. So this is another reason why it's dear to me, because I want to teach in the Philadelphia School District.
Yes, Yuma, yes. Oh, my gosh. If there's anything we can do to support you, let us know, okay? You are just wonderful. Thank you so much, honey. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you so much for giving us everything that we need. I'm going to talk to the alumni now and tell those students and the faculty that have been helping you, I said, yes. Thank you. Appreciate them. The fact that you gave them all sorts of kudos and you didn't take the credit for yourself tells me you are going to run something huge one day. Do you hear me?
Thank you so much for having me.
You're quite welcome, Yuma. And tell Mr. McKenna, we said yes. Yes. Continue to show what leadership looks like in these trying times, because a lot of leaders just want to talk about it and not be about it. Mr. McKenna, if you have put out 10 demands and in a week he's already worked through 5 of them and is working on the rest, that's the marks of good leadership too. So tell him we said thank you, okay?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're quite welcome, honey. Bye-bye. So, listen, there's a lot going on. Who's on the line now? Aaliyah. Okay, all right. I'm going to take Aaliyah in a minute. You all are calling in with the air conditioners. So, someone said to me the other day, your voice has power and people are listening to you. I am going to ask you that if you have an air conditioner that you want to donate, that you email me, alsanders@wordradio.com, so that I can connect you with someone who may need an air conditioner. If you are an elderly person that needs an air conditioner, same thing. Email me, alsanders@wordradio.com. That's ALSANDERS@WURDradio.com. Let's show this city what we can do for our seniors. That's how we create solutions. We can sit down and report the news, but there's simple ways to get this done. So, Aaliyah, are you on? Aaliyah, are you there?
I'm here.
Girl, did you hear Yuma?
Yeah.
Yuma was like, what we're not going to do, what we're not fitting to do in these Wakandan straits. And they put out 10 things that they wanted to see happen. Tell me why. When did you go to Central, Aaliyah?
I graduated in 2006, so I was a part of 265 was my class number.
Class of 2006. And what do you have to add to this conversation? Because this is...
Honestly, I was shocked because I wanted to go back and do some research to figure out kind of what was going on before I started talking. And just to see the event that's been happening since March is disheartening. If anybody knows me, my talk track, once I start speaking, I always reference the fact that I went to Central and how diversity and inclusion wasn't something that was foreign to me. It was what was normal. And then to see you have students, you know, being threatened by students using the KKK as imagery and things like that, that's not where, you know, I'm not going to say it was perfect, but it wasn't as blatant as it is now. And that is disheartening. To be an alumni, to probably rep this, to now see this is what the students are dealing with is unacceptable.
Yeah. What was life like there for you? What can you offer to these current students now? What advice do you have for them?
To own the power of their voice, to understand what comes with that, the fact that they don't realize they have so much power because they are important stakeholders. That is their school. Be proud of it and to make demands. Don't allow someone to make you feel like you don't belong. The moment you walk into those red doors, you have the same access and you demand the same equality that everyone else does. So don't let off the pressure. Keep applying pressure to the staff, the faculty, administration, and get us alumni involved because we do, as alum, hold a lot of power. And, you know, I can say for me personally, I think it's that we had the arrogance that Central was one of those oases that, oh, it doesn't happen at Central. And then to see that we've kind of got lax in the years, to see how diversity is dropped 50% in a decade. You know, to read that is just disheartening. So I think we all, as stakeholders, have a part to do and support these students. But to them, keep pushing, push until change happens. Pressure either is going to break pipes or make diamonds. So this is time to make diamonds. And I think it's time for them to just keep doing what they're doing. It's amazing. Like 17, 18 years old to be able to do that.
Right. And put out 10 demands and had 10 of them, 5 of them already worked on and the other 5 being worked on. Can you imagine? And these were great demands. They were not asking for anything, you know, that was not work. Create a black student recruitment team, population of black students are under 20%, recruit more black orientation leaders, navigate how black students how to join clubs and to, you know, keep working together. She says keep applying pressure. You know, ignorant children are expressing homophobic and racist collectively as a showcase of black, you know, for black history. You know, they deem their dances inappropriate. They censor their poets. They tell them that their clothing and what they cook, like mac and cheese, is not cultural enough. Like, how insulting is that for someone, right? So I need you to tell me what, because I know Central, like every other institution, comes with its good and its bad, right? Right now we're talking about the challenges. What has Central done for you as an individual since you've left there? Like, what have you gained from Central as an alumni?
So for me, Central allowed me to kind of own my intelligence and not be afraid to showcase it. It built me up. I remember my first day, freshman year, we sat in the auditorium, and they told us to kind of look to our left, look to our right, and basically said that some of us may not be here in the end. And it was competitive. It was where your ranking, you know, that's where you were trying to figure out where you were going to be. And to be built up like that, so I can walk into any meeting, any board, and talk to anyone with that confidence because that's what I got from Central. And I think not everyone has that privilege of kind of being able to walk into intelligence because, especially as a black female, tone it down, you know, shrink yourself to fit into these spaces. And that was a space that, you know, I was able to develop that sense of pride of who I am. My closest friends are Central grads. My son's godparents are Central grads. And we've all, done very well for ourselves, and we trace that back to that foundation that we built upon. Like it wasn't the end of it; it was just the start of it. Because it was a place where intelligence and creativity was the norm.
Right. Right.
So you don't get that all the time. And for me, I'm from Philadelphia, inner city Philadelphia. I grew up in Logan, so I walked to school every day, and it was a space to where I seen different people from different backgrounds, people from neighborhoods I've never interacted with before. So it was my first exposure to the world that was bigger than where my immediate circle was. So it gave me the economy of what the world looks like for real.
Yeah, Central High School is some years ago was the #1 high school in the country. I don't know if it still is. It probably is, right? Because you have such a mixture of so many different cultures and variations of different people there. But what is happening at Central should be happening at every school, right? What you just described, Aaliyah, is the way I grew up in Jamaica. It's the way I went to school, and every school had that. You were trained to be a leader. You were trained to speak up. You were trained to enunciate. You were trained to advocate for yourself. You were trained to be emotionally intelligent. You were trained so that when you walk into a room, you don't walk into the room with your insecurities on your back. You walk into the room with your ancestry on your shoulders, right? And so it sounds to me that you got at Central that is something that should be happening with every single student. So I love that you were able to give me some good background about the school and what it has created for you, because I don't want to walk away from this conversation having people thinking that Central is all bad. Also, Mr. McKenna, who I would love to talk. Mr. McKenna, if you are listening, if anybody knows Mr. McKenna, because when I tell you, when I was doing my research this morning, that's all I kept hearing was this man's name. His leadership is bar none, right? He cannot do this by himself. If anybody knows Mr. McKenna or Mr. McKenna is listening, I'd like to interview you. I really, really would. Brianna, see if you can reach out to Central High School, because I want him to show and exemplify what it means to not shirk and hide when things are happening, on the scenes, and saying things like make it go away instead of how can we make this better, right? This culture is happening everywhere, Aaliyah. And as a friend of mine just texted, she said, the Trump culture has brought hate to the surface. It's not being suppressed anymore. They are emboldened. And I think that's probably why you didn't see a lot of what these students are experiencing now, Aaliyah. So how can you as an alumni help with the current students that are there?
I'm kind of going to call out a challenge to all of our alums, specifically Black alums, to be present and so they can see us. And I think that shows solidarity more. We can give back. We can have students with build mentorship and things like that, because we have a lot of powerful things to offer. But if the students don't know where to go and we're not there to extend it, then they're just still left in the same state. So for me personally, I'm going to get more involved. I'm going to bring the same things that I do elsewhere to Central, because if it wasn't for people helping me, I wouldn't be where I am. And so I think that it's the spirit of Sankofa. You got to give back. That look back and give back to pull the person with you to where you are. And there's the Central Black Lives Matter Facebook page for people to get involved in. There's a GoFundMe for raising money for the Black Student Club. We can, donate time.
We can or donate money. Yes.
And money.
Yes.
3 ways, and everybody can contribute in the way that makes them comfortable.
Yes. The other thing the other suggestion that I would have, and not just for Central, but in other places, look at who is on your board. Now, Central will, they have lots of famous, folks on their boards. Ask a regular family member in a regular community if they could be a part of the board. You know what I mean? Diversify everything. Don't just, you don't have to be a big name person to be asked to sit on the board. And so we want to make sure that when we're thinking about these kinds of things, that we're acknowledging all parts of the population, not just the ones that we're impressed with. You understand what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Because they're very smart students that'll come into Central and any one of these magnet schools whose parents may not be able to afford certain things or live in a certain area, but they're just as smart. And education is the key to freedom. lots of people are aware of this, which is why I think they're holding back so many students. And so, I can't thank you enough for calling in and for putting down the gauntlet. Evan Burton says that he reached out to alumni. Do you know who Evan is?
No, I don't.
All right, so I'm going to connect you and Evan.
Please.
Because he said he reached out to alumni, and of all of them, only like 6 people responded. So, and this is the Black alumni. So let's see if we can get you all connected to continue to get the work done on behalf of these students. And thank you so much for calling in, okay?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome, honey. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye. All right, so, Lord, let me tell you, when I tell you I love talking to young people, I absolutely love talking to young people. Do we have our next callers on?
Yes, so we have a break.
We have a break, so we're going to take a break. All right, it was awesome, Evan. It was absolutely awesome. So, listen, we have 2 more alumni from Central coming on because, and yeah, again, I'm going to say this. If you know Mr. McKenna at Central High School, tell him Andrea Lawful Sanders would like to speak to him. I am hearing that he's doing amazing things, that when the students come to him, he has an open door policy that they can walk right in. They don't have to set up a meeting and wait 500 years to get it. He has an open door policy. They put out 10 demands last week, and in a week he's done 5 of the 10. I need to speak to him so that the other leaders who are hiding behind black curtains or hiding behind closed doors and saying things that we can't get it done, that he's going to show them exactly how it's able to be done. What email address, Laura Elam? It is ALSanders at ALSanders@wordradio.com. That's the email to send to me if you want to donate an air conditioner, or if you need an air conditioner, at wordradio.com. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on wordradio.com. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Want the latest in Word swag? Check out the shop tab on wordradio.com. Hoodies, tees, and more in a variety of colors. The shop tab on wordradio.com. Show the world that you're all about black. Talk Media.
Listen to Laborers Live.
We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour workday, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
I would like to play a little tune I just composed not so long ago.
Hey family, do you like hearing the best jazz selections aired by 3 of the best jazz announcers in Philadelphia? Well, tune in to 96.1 FM,
96.1 FM,
and 900 AM, WURD Radio, independent black media, for Freedom Sounds of Jazz.
Freedom Sounds of Jazz.
Hear Freedom Sounds of Jazz 10 p.m. Fridays with your hosts in rotation, Aquila, Jonathan Bay, and David Fritz. That's 10 p.m. Friday nights on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM, independent black media.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. We're having some riveting conversation. People are texting me. My husband said, yay, another future black teacher from Central to air conditioners. You are connecting people. Only my husband. The last voice you heard was Aaliyah Abraham, who is a lifelong Philadelphia resident. She graduated from the 265th graduating class of Central High School. She obtained a BA degree from Arcadia University, majoring in business administration with a Pan-African Studies minor. In 2018, Aaliyah founded the Black Alumni Association of Arcadia University, where she currently serves as president. As president, Aaliyah launched the BAAU Travel Fund designed to increase Black student participation in global studies experiences. The program is for students who identify as Black African American who demonstrates financial need and covers all program costs 100%. Aaliyah has worked professionally as an equal employment opportunity specialist for the federal government and recently began a new career as a management program analyst. Man, top notch. Karima Bushnefa is the Assistant Director of the Philadelphia University Honors Institute at Thomas Jefferson University, as well as adjunct faculty at the Community College of Philadelphia, a 1990 graduate of Central High School and a member of the school's 249th class. She's also a member of the Associated Alumni of Central's High School Board of Managers. In 1989, during her time at Central, Karima was named one of McDonald's 10 National Black History Makers of Tomorrow. She also earned an honorary bachelor's degree upon graduation from Central. Ms. Bushnefa and I'm so glad she put this. I love it. I love it, girl. Thank you for putting the correct pronunciation of your name. Ms. Bushnefa holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Virginia, where she currently serves as an alumni trustee on UVA's Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Fund. She also earned a master's degree at Georgetown University and is currently pursuing her doctorate at Rutgers University. In her free time, she hosts and produces the What You Ain't Gonna Do podcast. Jason Henderson, DPD, MBA, is the CEO of Ergo Solutions, LLC, and Ergo Home Health, providers of rehabilitation services in Washington, D.C. Jason is a 1995 graduate of Florida A&M University, where he earned a BS in physical therapy. Jason earned his doctorate in physical therapy from Alabama State University. He has been practicing physical therapy for 25 years. Jason received his Master's of Business Administration from the University of Maryland University College. He provides educational programs, training, and consulting for education providers and businesses. In addition, he has over 15 years of healthcare project management and business. He has authored his first novel, White Man, Black Man, Chinese Man, in 2011, and his latest business book, A Complete 180, in 2018. Jason is also an alum of Central University. Jason and Karima, are you both there?
Yes,
ma'am.
how are you?
So let me just tell you all, Central, for all the issues that y'all got with Central right now, you all came out of there and knocked the bucket clean. You're both accomplished people.
Thank you.
I mean.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We are classmates. Jason is my classmate from Central.
Really? Oh, did not know that. So what do you all have to add to this conversation? You heard Yuma, who is the current Black Student Union president, who was kicking it out the park. You heard Aaliyah, who said that she didn't have half of those issues when she was going through school, so she did her research and was shocked to hear that diversity is down 50% from the time she was there, right?
Yeah.
What do you two have, what do you two have to add to this conversation?
Oh, my goodness. Jason, you want to go first?
Karima, I think you should as a board member, and I'll follow your lead. Yes.
Oh, my God. I mean, I'm shocked as well. My jaw is on the floor. I'm so disheartened with these issues. Not that we didn't have our challenges when we were students, back at Central. Jason and I started in 1986. There were some things that, we all worked collectively to change. But just to hear that diversity is down 50%, to hear that there are so few African-American teachers there, just to hear about these microaggressions, I mean, this is antithetical to what Central High School is supposed to be about. And Central, especially for me, being a woman, was such a progressive school because Central, formerly was all male. And so, the school went co-ed shortly, just a few years before I was able to enter. I think that I may have been, Jason and I think our class may have been like the fourth co-ed class or something like that. Yeah. So this is just it's so regressive, and just as the previous alum said, this can't stand. This is not what Central is about. Yeah. Jason, what do you have to add to that?
Oh, yeah. I thank you, Karima. Karima is one of our leaders from our class of 249. I would love to share about our class because 249 is a very special class of graduation of 1990. We're a very diverse group. And Central High School is was awarded the number one diverse high school in the country. So it's important that we raise this because with diversity there comes obstacles, sometimes challenges. However, we of a higher mind, we who are intelligent, have to learn to build frameworks of competency. So when you're dealing with competency, it's necessary for central administration today to have competent faculty, competent people who work there, because they are really working with the future. They're working with students who are advanced and students that are in need. And so our class, we came together. We did a forum, and it was amazing to bring classes. This is our 30th year out of Central High School. We were to celebrate our 30th year, and we had a class that was filled with people of all different backgrounds. Not to say that it was perfect, but to bring together people for a purpose, for Black Lives Matter. Our class ourselves have put initiatives on how we can reach those kids that are at Central High School today.
Yeah,
so we're excited about it because we have to beat. When you talk about cultural competency, you want to, where there's denial, we got to get the Central to stop thinking that there's no problem. There were problems when we went through. When we went through there were issues like the Berlin Wall came down in 1989. And we had conversation about that. Tiananmen Square, there were issues in Tiananmen Square in China. And so we talk about all those issues, but as soon as you say it's a Black issue, everybody's supposed to be quiet. Like, we don't supposed to say anything. But you cannot minimalize the issues and the challenges that these students face at Central High School. And they need help. They need assistance. They need coaching. And I think that the platform of alumni, to give an opportunity to give to the system and to the policy and to give to value. I love the young lady who was on before.
Yuma,
Yuma, and to give to the value of understanding the focus of where they're going in the future. I do applaud my classmates. I applaud the efforts of everyone who understands the necessity of being culturally competent.
Let me ask you this, Jason and Karima. Let me ask you, both of you, this. We are in COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
Is there a way that you all can reach out to this current class and start to mentor them via Zoom? Because listen, because I'm trying to tell you, we there's the solutions are so simple, but when you start to mentor young minds, somebody like a Yuma, for the two of you, one of you have a doctorate degree, the other one's working towards a doctorate. You both experienced lives living for 30 years outside of Central High School. There's so much that you can offer to them, so much great advice, so many doors you can open for them, right? And the mentoring absolutely works. It's like iron sharpening iron. So can we start a Zoom conversation with that class? Reach out to Yuma and say, can we mentor you through Zoom, since we can't all meet with each other anyway, and maybe you can open up doors for them that will fly in the face of a lot of the things that they're going through. For instance, if they are dealing with people telling them that they can't wear certain things for their cultural day, you can give them a solid advice on what to do, how to combat that, right? Without facing disciplinary action, as an example. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, that's following in the tradition that we benefited from when we were students at Central. And I'm sure, Jason, you will remember some of the amazing teachers we had, like Mr. Plummer, Mr. Rivera, who was our advisor for, it was initially called the Black Student Union, and I think it was during our time that we changed the name to the African American Student Union. But we had that exact kind of mentorship. We had folks, I remember, going into President Pavel's office, that was our principal at the time, and, having meetings to talk about student issues. But I felt confident in doing that because I had teachers who told me, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you proceed. This is how you get results. So I'm here for it. I know Jason is too.
Yeah. My last question for the both of you, what advice do you have for the current situation that these students are in? These are not small issues. What advice do you have for them?
Go ahead, Jason. You go ahead.
My advice for the students is to number one, to build their strength in knowing who they are
Mm-hmm.
in this challenges of Black Lives Matter, really becoming educated. And for me, because I went to an HBCU, I'm an HBCU product twice. Graduated from Florida A&M and Alabama State, and both institutions have strengthened me much more than when I was a 17-year-old. So from my experiences and learning more about me, I felt more equipped that I did not have going into Central. I came out of an all-black neighborhood, and I went to an all-black middle school, and then to come into a place where high diversity is, they must become educated on other people as well as themselves.
Yes.
It starts with home, learning about who we are and understanding how to integrate and learn how to relate with other cultures, because it's sometimes at 13 to 17 years old, we might not know all the answers how to handle challenges that adults have. Really comes with you have to mature fast at Central.
Yes.
And so in that maturity, it comes with learning globally. And sometimes that means sitting down and talking to somebody who don't look like you.
Yes.
And sometimes it's experience other people's lives.
Yes.
And learning, because the world is not all black. But I encourage, and I'm a product of HBCU, but it's important to understand how to survive in diversity. So I wrote a book about it. And so it's important that kids learn how to relate in cultural diversity.
Okay. I have 30 seconds left because now I'm really over time. Karima?
I'll make it fast. And I do want to let you know, too, Andrea, that I will connect you with President McKenna when I get off the call. I'll make an introduction via email for you. He's an amazing president, and I do commend him for his leadership and the way he cares about all of the students. But what I would want to say to these students who are there now is just to remember that all of this works together for your good. This is actually an amazing opportunity to develop your leadership skills. This is real-world, real-life stuff that you are dealing with. And so all of this is creating that leadership in you, that ability to problem solve, that cultural competency that Jason talked about. So I know it can get hard, it can get heavy, but, be not weary. You keep pressing on, because without struggle, there's no progress.
Absolutely. Karima Bushnefa and Dr. Jason Henderson, alumni of Central High School in Philadelphia. Thank you both so much for calling in. Do me a favor and let people know how they can reach you both. I meant to ask Aaliyah the same thing.
Oh, wow. You can.
Well, because, I'm assuming that there's current Central students and families that are listening, so they might want to reach out to you. So what does that look like?
Sure. Well, I'm a business owner. I'm in Washington, D.C. My email address is jhenderson, which is my first letter and my last name, at ergo, ERGO, 180.com. You can email me at any time. That's jhenderson at ergo180.com. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And you, Karima?
I have a bajillion email addresses. So the easiest one is WAG as in great, D as in determined, podcast at gmail.com.
At gmail.com. Okay. Gmail.com. Thank you both so much for calling in and adding
Thank you for having us on the show.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Quite welcome. I'll talk to you both soon, okay?
Okay, you take care.
All right, bye-bye. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Weather and traffic to keep you informed for your morning commute on Wake Up with Word. Weekdays 7 a.m. till 10 a.m. hosted by Solomon Jones. Right here on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Do you need health insurance for your children? The Children's Health Insurance Program, also known as CHIP, provides quality, affordable health insurance for Pennsylvania kids. CHIP ensures that kids can go to the doctor, receive health screenings and vaccines, and get what they need to live a healthy childhood. Families can be covered by CHIP no matter how much money they make. If you've experienced a recent change in employment or income, CHIP may be a good option for your family. Visit chipcoverspakids.com to apply or learn more.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars. So many times we say to ourselves, I need to make a difference. Well, your chance is here. Center in the Park is holding a virtual volunteer event Thursday, September 10th, 2020 from 1 p.m. till 3 p.m. Advocate for those who can't, support those who can, and ensure all long-term care residents live with dignity and respect. Register for the Ombudsman event at cipombudsman.eventbrite.com. We all feel better when we do something that matters and when we do something with purpose.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. We are hopping right along, honey. You know what? I'm going to have to stop printing out all these things, but I like to write. I'm a writer, and I go back and I look at all the things that I write about and all the notes that I take throughout the show. We have now on the line Neamal. I'm just trying to see. Neamal, are you there, darling?
Yes, I am.
I'm looking for Chioma Ozzy. Is she around?
Is she calling?
No. Can you check with Chioma? Before we get started, did you see that the Supreme Court just recently ruled that half of Oklahoma belongs to the Native Indians?
No, I did not.
I printed it too, Mal. I was like, oh, shuggy ducky. I printed it, Mal, so I'm going to find it so we can talk about it. Neamal is on to talk about life in the diaspora, which is something that we're doing every single Thursday from now into creation, because while I'm looking for this article, Neamal, tell us what's going on in Ethiopia, because I've been getting calls and text messages about Ethiopia.
So, hey, everybody. I hope y'all doing well.
Yeah.
So, basically, the updates on Ethiopia is that since Tuesday, we've had over 200 deaths in protests, particularly the Oromo people.
Okay.
The country is still shut down. The only news we're getting is from the big news outlet like Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN. But for those of us that have family there, again, the phone lines are incredibly short. Even when we're trying to call family members, there's only like a short window. But then Addis is the capital, so if you have family in Addis, it's a lot easier. The phone lines are a little bit better than those of us that have families like in different parts of the country. So my family are in the southwestern part of the country, at the border of South Sudan. So it's been a little bit difficult to get families that way. But again, the country is completely shut down. Even the numbers of deaths that are reported, we know that it's a lot more than that, because they don't want to ring the alarm so that the international community or even America could actually start putting pressure on Ethiopia.
Right, Lord. And so the what are you hearing from the people what news is coming out from the people that live, the Oromo people in Ethiopia?
The ones that have been able to get the internet, the hacked internet, they're basically just trying to get out the message that those of us that are in the diaspora definitely need to be continuing to have the conversation that this is happening. Atrocities are being committed. The numbers that's being reported is not the actual number. People are dying a lot more. It's being reported.
Okay.
But then for those of us in the diaspora, we've been having courageous conversations because, again, hate speech is real. And just how the American justice system, race is dividing us, we're being divided along the ethnic line in Ethiopia right now. So a lot of the internet platforms are very much, Oromo this, Amara this ethnic group that, this ethnic group that, instead of really seeing our humanity as a collective and hurting with our people and seeing how can we really solve this systematic injustice and issue that is pinning us against each other so that the system can still live and thrive.
You know, Mal, it feels like the whole world is in turmoil. Does it not feel like that to you?
Oh, who are you telling? I'm out here like I have 3 homes burning at the same time. I don't even know where to start putting fire.
Right. Yeah, it's frightening in a way because it just feels like when we tell people all the time, you cannot have an action without an equal or greater reaction. And so when we ignore the plight and conditions of people in one place, it easily trickles to us eventually. The United States of America does just not sit on a planet all by itself, and we don't have to be bothered with anyone. The plight of the people around us impacts what happens with us too. And so we have to be very mindful about that. I pulled up the article. It says the United States Supreme Court, that was today, at 10:10 a.m., written by Lawrence Hurley from Reuters. The United States Supreme Court on Thursday recognized about half of Oklahoma as Native American reservation land and overturned a tribe member's rape conviction because the location where the crime was committed should have been considered outside the reach of state criminal law. The justices ruled 5-4 in favor of a man named Jimsy McGirt and agreed that the site of the rape should have been recognized as a part of a reservation based on the historical claim of the Muskogee Creek Nation. Beyond the jurisdiction of state authorities, conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch joined the court's 4 liberals in the majority. The rulings means that for the first time in much of eastern Oklahoma is legally considered reservation land. More than 1.8 million people live in the land at issue, including roughly 400,000 in Tulsa, Oklahoma's largest city. Tribe members who live within the boundaries are now set to become exempt from certain state obligations, such as paying state taxes, while certain Native Americans found guilty in state courts may be able to challenge their convictions on jurisdictional grounds. The tribe also may obtain more power to regulate alcohol sales and expand casino gambling. The ruling could also affect the other 4 of the 5 tribes in Oklahoma, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole tribes. The ruling voided Gird's sentence of 1,000 years in prison, but he could face a new trial in federal court rather than state court. And so that's happening. That happened today, Mal.
Wow.
So yeah, the news is changing drastically. Chioma is on. Chioma G is a community advocate, attorney, and a strong voice for the African community in the greater Philadelphia area. Chioma began her community advocacy work as a law student at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where she, did I say Duquesne? Is it Duquesne?
Duquesne, yes.
Thank you. Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where she represented impoverished clients with the Defenders Association of Philadelphia and the Office of the Public Defender of Allegheny County in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She began her career as an attorney, as a solo practitioner, handling a variety of legal matters, including immigration, small business, consulting, and civil cases. In 2012, Chioma joined as a staff attorney at the African Cultural Alliance of North America, Incorporated, ACANA, a community-based nonprofit organization that assists African and Caribbean immigrants in their resettlement in the United States. Under her leadership, Chioma strengthened the organization by creating legal department, taking a lead in grant writing, program development, and implementation, and by overseeing the revitalization of the arts and cultural department. Chioma, you are doing some crazy work, man. And so in addition to all your legal work, you're the founder and chief executive officer of Philly Nigerian Professionals, a professional development and networking group that brings African students and professionals together for social networking, charitable and volunteer events in and around the Philadelphia area. She's also a co-founder and executive director of the Nora Anina Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting people of Ugandan descent through education, career development. You know what? Black women, we rock. There's just no other way. So you were born to a Nigerian father and a Ugandan mother in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Chioma still makes her home in Philadelphia and also splits her time between Uganda and Nigeria. Welcome to The Source, Chioma. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Whoo, child. America is on fire. Ethiopia is on fire. Flames are happening everywhere. I don't know where to start. What do you and Mal have to offer us today for life in the diaspora?
Well, it's a very challenging time. From my perspective, I'm an immigration lawyer. I mean, I practice other areas, but that's my area of focus. And for folks in the diaspora, but for folks here, you know, immigrants, the immigrant community here in the United States, it's a very challenging time. There are lots of rule changes and policies that are coming down that are making it harder for folks to remain here, folks who are here already legally, for folks to remain, for families to be reunited. And, of course, all of this is happening on the backdrop of the COVID-19 pandemic, which many countries are struggling to deal with, especially ours here. But some of our countries, you know, in Africa and the African diaspora are having their own challenges as well. So it's a tough time for folks in the diaspora. I think it's a tough time for everybody. Of course, you know, we are all aware of the racial justice issues that have been ongoing, the discussions about how do our communities link up between, you know, the continent, the Americas, how do we work together to support one another and support movements and sustain them. So it's many things happening at once.
Chioma, let me ask you this. When you say it's making it difficult for folks to remain here legally, what does that mean?
Well, I'm sure all of us have heard the news, most recently the rule that was announced by Immigration and Customs Enforcement a few days ago that F1 students that are here on F1 visas are not going to be able to remain here.
Chioma. Yes. Chioma. Listen.
People are concerned. That's putting it mildly.
Yes, Chioma. So Laura Benshoff wrote this from BBC NewsHour. I don't think she's from BBC. I have to figure out where it is. WHYY.org is where I got it from. And this student said, I thought it was a hoax. PA students, universities respond to Trump restrictions for international visas. I want people to know how impactful this is going to be, not just on the students, but on the universities. I'm so glad you brought it up. A new Trump administration rule limiting online classes for international students has thrown tens of thousands of students enrolled in Pennsylvania universities into new uncertainty less than 2 months before school resumes. Published on Monday afternoon, the temporary final rule, as the regulation is paradoxically called, will no longer allow those with common F1 or M1 international student visas to reside in the United States while taking a full online course load. This mirrors regulations that exist during non-pandemic times, which were suspended in March to give schools flexibilities when the coronavirus struck. Comments from a top Trump administration official suggest the changes away. The president is attempting to leverage schools to reopen in the fall in hopes of normalizing the economy. No way. In an interview on CNN Tuesday, Acting Homeland Security Deputy Ken Cuccinelli said the rule will expand flexibility and encourage schools to reopen. So we're putting people's lives in danger. For students, it's a disorienting change during an already difficult time. For universities, it's a new vague set of bureaucratic hurdles. It was very stressful, said Kanya Tomar, a PhD student at the University of Pennsylvania, who is from India. She said she woke up from a nap to missed calls from her roommate, who was also an F1 visa. I was half asleep and just couldn't imagine that it was real. I thought it was a hoax of some kind. On Monday, Tomar said she started reaching out to people at other universities to figure out whether the order affects graduate students. It's risking people's health and not being thoughtful about what it means to be in the middle of this pandemic, she says. Per the new guidance, students attending schools operating entirely online may not take a full online course and remain in the United States, wrote U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement official. This applies even if a school is forced to switch from in-person to online courses in the middle of the semester, for example, due to a new coronavirus lockdown order. Those students planning to stay in their home countries and take online courses at the start of the semester will not be affected. In the online message board, some international students here locally said existing impediments were already keeping them home. U.S. embassies have been closed and flight restrictions have made travel to and from the country difficult. But the universities are also saying, Chioma, that, you know, they have over 50,000 students. The University of Pennsylvania said 5,333 international students enrolled across its undergraduate and graduate programs of last fall. Temple University puts its undergraduate international enrollment at nearly 2,000. And so when you start to add them up from all the different colleges, this is going to affect their bottom line too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so this is, Lord have mercy.
It's huge. It's huge. And, that's why, you know, it was interesting to see, but not surprising to see, that Harvard University and MIT have already filed lawsuits against the federal government.
Oh, did they?
Rule. Yeah, I mean, you know, as you said, a lot of, you know, institutions, and, you know, this is what the administration may or may not realize, how much foreign students subsidize education, not just for American students, but they really bolster the coffers.
Yes, of the universities. Yes.
Large and small. The biggest schools, for schools that are very science-based, because, you know, unfortunately, a lot of Americans are not pursuing a, you know, heavy science field like foreign students do, down to your smaller schools, your schools in, you know, Middle America. You'd be surprised how many international
students they have. Yes.
So this is a huge issue for the students as well as the universities.
Yes.
You know, you have questions of whether, first of all, you have students that have invested thousands and thousands of dollars in their education, and to be asked to return home when they've already invested money, they can look to the school and say, hey, I need half of my money back, because if I'm not living in the dorm, if I'm not spending money on food and whatnot, you know, for undergrads anyway, I need half of my money back, and that's a position that the university doesn't want to be in.
Absolutely.
Not to mention the logistical aspect of trying to study with time differences.
Right.
And, you know, depending on the countries you're talking about, you have issues with power and access to internet and a whole host of issues. And just the simple fact that you're trying to punish students for, you know, typically with the F1, you know, with student visas, the burden is put on the student to make sure that they are complying with the rules. And so that's why this rule is in place. This rule is actually not a new rule. It's a rule that was already in place, but that ICE temporarily suspended enforcement of this rule because of the pandemic.
Right.
But they have made a conscious decision to say, as the article stated, we want people to go back to school. We want to pretend as if this pandemic will just go away if we just decide it's going to go away.
So you know what, though, Chioma? So here's where it's going to get dicey. Universities and colleges are saying they may be forced to shut their doors, right?
Absolutely.
They depend so much on these international students, and I mean from everywhere around the world, India, China, Egypt. When my oldest son went off to college, his roommate was from Egypt. I don't think people realize how many international students are in these universities and colleges.
So many. It's what you know, our K through 12 leaves a lot to desire, but our higher education is been one system that's been touted as one of the best in the world because of the fact that we're able to attract all this talent from around the world. So when you now become less attractive, people, the brightest and the best, don't want to come here anymore, and make it less interesting or you know, comfortable for foreign students to come. It's also going to have an impact on our understanding of our colleges and universities.
Agreed.
It's huge. It's huge. It's not just the students who are concerned. This is why the universities are now also seeing what they can do, because, and as you said, the California state system, they announced like 2 months ago that their classes are all going to be suspended for the fall.
Yes.
So a lot of states are doing, you know, what they think is in the best interest of the health and safety of students. This is why even discussion about, you know, elementary school reopenings in the fall.
Right, it's so frightening to so many people. Yes,
because the government is trying to push this, but there are some bright spots. You know, this lawsuit is a bright spot, and also some schools, in an effort to protect students, are offering a hybrid approach. So if you know, there's a slight flexibility in the rules. So if a student is able to take classes online and in person. So in other words, if your classes are not 100% online, then you can still be in compliance with your visa. But again, you know, if you're in Florida, if you're in a state where it's getting really
where there's hot spots, right?
A school may not even want to, you know, make that, you know,
exception. Absolutely. This is so insane. Mel, what do you have to offer to all of this?
Choma just voiced everything. This is crazy, or in the Nigerian slang, this is a whole bunch of wahala.
Yeah, wahala. Does wahala mean crazy in Nigerian slang?
It's a
means problem. It means like problems.
Big problems.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. We have, I don't know, there's so much happening at one time. And it is the perfect storm that's creating a combination of events, because people are fussing that they need to have their freedoms and their rights. But I just read that the Ivy League suspends fall sports due to coronavirus pandemic. We are still knee deep in the first wave. You know how lots of countries have already gone through their first wave and flattened the curve and are doing what they need to do, you know, in preparation for the second wave. We can't even come out of the first wave. And for me, it is startling the level of ignorance that I see from people, you know. I'm only going to fly to such and such, and I'll wear my mask. But airplanes are huge petri dishes. I'm only going to have 15 people in my house per what the government says. But they're now telling you that the virus is transmitted through the air. So, like, I'm sitting in the studio with my producer. She has her mask on. I have to talk without my mask, but she's in here fully masked up so that I can stay safe, and so can she. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so we can't even flatten the curve. All sorts of things are going on in other countries, in other continents, and I don't know where we begin and end in all of this. What advice do you have for people right now, especially on the immigration issue, because people are really frightened about what's coming down the pike?
Well, my advice is first to Americans, and that is we have an election coming up. This is an election year. So number one, if you haven't registered to vote, I really encourage you to do that. I know that there's a lot of disillusionment. I know people feel frustrated that their vote doesn't matter, and that maybe folks are disappointed that their candidate isn't on the ballot or isn't high up on the ballot. But what we're seeing right now is a reflection of the leadership that we have at the top.
Yeah.
It's nothing less than that. This leadership, this administration is setting the tone for the response to this pandemic. And they are trying to set the tone for our immigration policy for many, many years to come. And, you know, for all the faults that we have in our system here, we do have a system where we can vote people in and out.
Yes.
And if we want to have 4 more years of what we're seeing now, then you vote for it. If you want to see something different, then you vote for something different.
Yeah.
So my advice is to, you know, any American who is registered to vote but hasn't voted in a while, or is not registered to vote, or if you're a newly sworn-in American, I really encourage you to register and to get out there and vote, however we're going to do it, whether it's going to be mail-in ballots or in person, whatever we're going to do in November. It's really, really important.
Yes.
And in terms of the immigrant community, you know, my advice is the same, and it remains the same in all difficult situations, and that is seek the proper advice. Seek information, even if it's information that you don't want to hear or information that's uncomfortable. Seek out individuals who can assist you, because, you know, as my old boss used to say, immigration cases are like people's faces. Even in dark times like this, everyone's situation is not the same. You may think, or you may find that, you know, there's no hope, or there's no opportunities, but you might be surprised to find that there are opportunities to figure out another way around the situation.
Right.
Right now we're talking about students, but, you know, these are restrictions that were announced last month have also basically wiped out work petitions.
Right.
There are a lot of people who are stranded here, or who aren't able to get back in, or who won't be able to keep working here because of the limitations on work visas. There are a lot of challenges, but I just encourage folks to seek out information, seek out the advice and the assistance of people who can advise you. And you may be surprised to find that there are ways forward.
Yes.
But you won't know that if you live in fear, or you just feel like, well, let me just keep quiet and hope that nothing happens or no one finds me. You gotta really seek out help and see what is available to you, and see what you can do, and try to arm yourself with information. Use information as your weapon, as your tool to combat the fear and the uncertainty.
Thank you so much, Chioma. Mal, I am 1 minute over, so give me your advice.
Thank you for having this, so that communities can get educated, knowing that this doesn't only affect us in silos. Our fight is the same.
Yes. Chioma and Mal, thank you both so much for joining me again for another episode of Life in the Diaspora. Chioma, Mal, I'd love Chioma to come back on more often with us, please, because she's targeting the immigrant community in a way that the advice that she's given will help, and will help to alleviate some of the fears too, right? So this is good stuff. I want to thank you both so much for calling in today. Have a good one.
Thank you,
Bye.
you too.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye-bye. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. If you are hearing the sound of my voice, I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Check out the Source lineup on Word Radio. Mondays, get ready for the rapping professor, Dr. Aaron Smith. On Tuesdays, it's Andrea Lawful Sanders. Then on Wednesdays, it's the Black Women's Leadership Council. On Thursdays, it's a second helping of Andrea Lawful Sanders. And on Fridays, it's Tiffany Bacon. Don't miss the Source. Monday through Thursday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and Fridays, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Exclusively on Word Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Streaming live on wordradio.com and on the Word Radio app.
JD's Auto Body and Painting is hiring talent for the following positions. Assembler, preferably 2 to 3 years experience, able to tear down and reassemble all make and model cars. Painter, must have at least 5 years overall painting experience, including experience in water-based paint and able to prep cars for paint jobs. Auto Body Technician, looking for an A or B technician, must have at least 5 years experience repairing cars. Please send your resume to JD's Auto Body and Painting at Comcast.net. That's JDS Auto Body and Painting at Comcast.net. Or call 215-848-5349 for more details. JD's Auto Body and Painting is an equal opportunity employer.
Your child deserves to be educated in a safe learning environment. Southwest Leadership Academy Charter School is a tuition-free public school. Both our locations offer dual-gender environments with single-gender classrooms. Our students score in the top state testing percentile among area schools. Apply online at bit.ly/enrolls SLA in all caps. That's bit.ly/enroll SLA.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on wordradio.com and the Word Radio app.
Singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
Yo, this is why Clef Refuge Risewell, little bass sitting up here on the bass. While I'm on this road, I got my girl L. One time. Hey yo L, you know you got the lyrics.
I heard he sang a good song. I heard he had a style. And so I came to see him and listen for a while. And there he was, this young boy, stranger to my eyes, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with this song, killing me softly with this song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song. I felt all flushed with fever. embarrassed by the crowd. I felt he found my letters and read each one out loud. I prayed that he would finish, but he just kept right on, strumming my pain with his fingers, singing my life with his words, killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly with his song.
Take me to the bridge.
Welcome back to The Source. I'm over here singing El Boogie, and, I've got a great guest on for the 100th anniversary of the Women's Right to Vote, which is brought to you by Comcast, NBC, Universal. Every week, we try to find people who can have a discussion about the suffrage movement, and today we have Belly Bagbonan. Belly is a high school social studies teacher at the William Penn Charter School in Philadelphia. He has taught ancient civilizations, global world, and U.S. history courses alongside coaching boys lacrosse. As a graduate of Immaculata University and a current graduate student of Villanova University, Belly has spent nearly a decade teaching in both public and private school systems in the Philadelphia area, and has made it a point to travel the world to study various cultures in West Africa, Latin America, and Europe. Belly, are you there?
Yes, Miss Lawful Sanders. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me in this conversation. The first question I have for you is this. Do you teach about the suffrage movement in your history classes?
Of course I do.
You do?
The suffrage movement, of course. I think it's important.
Yes. And do you talk about the black women in the suffrage movement?
Yes. To highlight a few, Sojourner Truth, alongside the Canton Sisters, alongside Alice Paul, the Seneca Falls Convention. Of course, I think that in this day and age, and particularly this year, 2020, highlighting women's efforts both at the forefront and behind the scenes in suffrage and securing the right and privilege to vote is very important. I think it's important for educators as well as for students.
And so, Belly, something I learned today that I didn't know. So, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm from the island of Jamaica. So, I didn't learn much about U.S. history. I learned Caribbean history and British history, right? And so, I'm learning a lot about different things like the suffrage movement as I go about my daily movement. I did not know. I've always heard of Sojourner Truth. I didn't know about Charlotte Van Dyne Fortin, Harriet Fortin Purvis. These are black women. I didn't know about Margaretta Fortin, Angelina Weld Grimke, Charlotte Fortin Grimke. These are all Sarah Redmond. I never heard of these women.
Absolutely.
Charlotta Rowland, Mary Ann Shad Carey. These are in the 1800s to 1893. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper from 1825 to 19. These black women were not playing. Josephine Pierre Ruffin from 1842 to 1924. Gertrude Moselle from 1855 to 1948, and she's from Philadelphia. She was a prominent free African American family of reformers and married a physician. A professional journalist, Miss Moselle, she wrote a woman's column in T. Thomas Fortin's newspaper, the New York Freeman. Her article entitled "Women's Suffrage," published in 1885, encouraged women to read suffrage history and articles on women's rights. Like Frances Harper, Moselle believed intemperance to be a great hindrance to the progress of the black community. And so that was, she wrote this article in 1885 is when she wrote the article. What has changed or not since that article, since she wrote that piece about intemperance and black women and the suffrage movement that you can attest to, Belly, in your movement as a history teacher and someone who travels the world?
Absolutely, Ms. Lawful Sanders. First and foremost, that was an impressive list of female suffragettes.
Yes.
And the first thing that I can attest to is students understand their current situation. They understand what life is like as a Gen Zer or a millennial within the 2000s. But getting them to understand what life is like beyond their current situation is pivotal to getting to understand the Ida B. Wellses of the world, the Sojourner Truths of the world, the Lucretia Motts of the world, and I heard you mention the Grimke sisters, which are also very, very impactful, particularly in the tri-state area, being coming from the Northeast in cities like Philadelphia, Baltimore, New York. From a personal experience, believe it or not, last week I was teaching a summary course, the presence of African American literature in American history. And we took excerpts from Sojourner Truth's 1851 speech in Akron, Ohio, Aren't I a Woman? And I think that speech not only personifies the length and the strife that women, particularly women of color and minority women, have needed to go through, but it also highlights the lack of humanity that particular individuals, particular groups have needed to overcome in order to exercise their human rights, their natural rights of suffrage, of voting. And in this day and age, in order to bridge that gap, it was 1855, right, 5 years before the Civil War began, to 2020. We're talking a long time period. We're talking a very, very long time period. But particularly for those students, I think that getting them, how I make them understand that, or how I help them to achieve that understanding, is drawing parallels between those excerpts and the injustices that they currently see. These children are smart. These children are very woke, as the younger generation likes to say. So they're aware of those injustices, but bridging that gap is how I get my students to understand it.
Yes. So I have to tell you that just yesterday, July 8th, 2020, I had 6 fabulous and powerful black women in a conversation for the Philadelphia Sunday Sun called Ask Mother Live. And the very things that Sojourner Truth was talking about in the 1800s is what these black women are talking about. They're talking about their voices being muted. They're discussing the fact that they're leading large organizations. One of them is the head of over 500 employees. One had 90 employees. None of them were black. One who worked for the Defenders Association in Montgomery County until she lost her job, speaking up on behalf of the underserved. The fact that black women are now the top vote getters in this country and are deciding elections.
That's very true.
We are at the 100th anniversary of all of this. One of those women was Mary Lou Watson, who talked about mentoring young people because her give back is to making sure that the young people coming behind her understands and mentoring them and walking them through the process until they get to the places where they need to be. It is how many years from 1885 to 2020?
I teach social studies, not history, but my guess would be somewhere north of 150 years.
Exactly. And this is the 100th anniversary of the women's suffrage movement and the women's right to vote. What can we tell students now in the middle of everything that's happening in this country about voting and what that should mean to them as they become of age?
Absolutely. I think right now, children and young students are watching adults, and they're watching the turmoil that's happening both in the streets, that's happening within political arenas, that's also happening oftentimes within their household. And when we focus on young girls, a lot of times our attention is in a patriarchal system of which we live in. A lot of times we don't tell the stories of a Gertrude Perkins,
yes,
or a Reese Taylor, or of Fannie Lou Hamer. All of these women, or Daisy Bates, of all of these women who were rocks as leaders during the previous civil rights movements in this country's history. I think that what we can tell these students is, and these young people that are listening actively to what they're seeing and what they're hearing, is that without becoming active agents in their own future, then that someone else will determine their place, their station in life, and their ability to move forward. For example, I was Ms. Lawful. I was listening to you speak about the Supreme Court's recent rulings on a number of issues. For example, to try to move students with F1 titles and students from abroad living and studying here in the United States to resend them back to the countries from which they came. Those young women, those young men that are caught up in that turmoil, they're attempting to achieve a better station in life.
Yes.
And I think that what we can tell this next generation, what we can tell these young minds, is that just like the women that came before them, they were active agents in shaping their own destiny. Now it is your turn to do the same.
I completely agree. I have to take a quick station break, but here's my next question for you, and I'm going to let you think about it while we're on station break. What role do you see men playing in the suffrage movement for women? Think about that, and I'll have you answer that when we come back, okay?
Okay.
All right, hold on. You are listening to The Source, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, streaming live on WordRadio.com. Follow us on all social media platforms at onWURD. 215-634-8065 is the number to call in. This segment is brought to you by Comcast Universal NBC, and we're talking about the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Don't miss the Electric Magazine Show, hosted by Cody Anderson and Vicki Leach. Saturday mornings from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. Exclusively on Word Radio. 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Tune in Saturdays from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. to hear Empire Capital and Consulting founder Mark Palmer's show titled Black Money, Black Power. This show centers around black money and how black power is derived from money. Tune in every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Black Money, Black Power, hosted by Mark Palmer.
These are unprecedented times, challenging how the YMCA works to strengthen community as we have for nearly 170 years. But we've always found ways to help people and communities in times of crisis. Right now, Ys across the country are providing emergency childcare, shelter, food programs, and outreach to seniors. But we can't do it alone. Whether you're connected to the Y or have a fond Y memory, we need you to stay with us. Reach out to your local Y today and stay with us for a better us.
You're listening to The Source with Andrea Lawful Sanders on Word Radio. Streaming live on WordRadio.com and the Word Radio app.
Welcome back to The Source. If you are just joining us, I have on the line with me Belly Bag Banan, who is a social studies teacher at William Penn Charter School, and we're talking about the women's suffrage movement and the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, which is brought to you by Comcast NBC Universal. Mr. Bag Banan, were you born and raised here, or are you from a different country?
Yes, ma'am. Believe it or not, I have a large background in the international world. But I was born and raised in Washington, D.C.
Yes.
Moved to Philadelphia at a very young age, and spent time living abroad, particularly in Benin, West Africa, as well as Burkina Faso, West Africa, and the capital, Ouagadougou.
Yeah, I could hear the worldly conversations coming from you, so I knew you had some sort of ties to different parts of the world. I just wasn't sure if it was naturally here or you just traveled quite a bit. And so my question for you was, what role do you think men can and should play in the women's suffrage movement, especially as it applies to black women who feel they have been betrayed by the suffrage movement?
Absolutely, Ms. Lawful Sanders. I think that gender politics in this year, and as it has been in previous years, has reached an apex of sorts. Mm-hmm. First, I want to highlight previous men, particularly black men, mm-hmm. that have rested on the laurels of the women that preceded them. For example, a lot of my students don't realize that Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was able to reach his prominence without properly acknowledging the sacrifices that the women that came before him have made. For example, a lot of times people don't realize that it was women that were the first to boycott racial injustices that were being experienced in the Deep South. For mm-hmm. example, the Mayor Gale arrests and the bus boycotts that we've all heard mm-hmm. about. It was that momentum that was first started up by black women mm-hmm. that helped propel Dr. King to prominence. Mm-hmm. Even before the Civil Rights Movement, during the Great Migration. Oftentimes, men would leave from the Deep South to travel to Los Angeles or Chicago or New York or Philadelphia, leaving the women behind in the rural South mm-hmm. In order to not just fend for themselves, but also to become active agents in reforming policies and to become and to remodel and to reform the democracy of which they were being held and suppressed with. Mm-hmm. But right now, I think that both women oftentimes, and women of color specifically, are being hit from three different angles. Mm-hmm. If it's not racism based on the color of their skin, then most likely it's misogyny mm-hmm. based on their gender. Mm-hmm. And for those women that also have different sexual orientations or mm-hmm. different belief systems, mm-hmm. there might be a third wave of attacks that they're being faced with. Right. And I think that just as women have helped men move forward, I think that now is time to flip that narrative and flip that script to provide an opportunity for women to move forward. I think that this country is getting closer and closer mm-hmm. to that. We mm-hmm. saw that in 2000. We saw that earlier in 2016 mm-hmm. with Hillary Clinton mm-hmm. On the presidential ballot. We're seeing the largest in the lower house in Congress. We're seeing the largest amount of women mm-hmm. on serving our country and serving our nation in their different districts and in different demographics. Mm-hmm. But I think that momentum cannot slow down. So men have benefited from women's sacrifices, but I think now it's time for men to repay that favor.
Oh, it was such a pleasure talking to you. Belly Bag Bonan. I want to make sure I do not mess up your name. Belly Bag Bonan. It's like a tongue twister.
It is a tongue twister. It is a tongue twister.
It is. Bag Bonan. I want to thank you so much for calling in at such short notice. You have been a plethora of great information, and continue to rock those social studies classes and teach those students everything you know. I had no idea there were so many black women who were a part of the women's suffrage movement. So thank you on behalf of your the WURD listeners and myself. I want to thank you for calling in for this extremely important topic, okay?
Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. Bye-bye. That segment was brought to you. It's the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote, and it was brought to you by Comcast, NBC, Universal. I have a few minutes left before this show ends, and I literally wanted to talk to you about the facts. You know, we're talking about the women's suffrage movement, and there was an opinion that was written in 2018 about how the suffrage movement betrayed black women. The Suffragist Heroes, it was written by Brent Staples, July 28, 2018. The suffragist heroes Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony seized control of the feminist narrative of the 19th century. Their influential history of the movement still governs popular understanding of the struggle for women's rights and will no doubt serve as a touchstone for commemorations that will unfold across the United States around the centennial of the 19th Amendment in 2020. That narrative in the six-volume history of women's suffrage betrays more than a hint of vanity when it credits the Stanton-Anthony cohort with starting a movement that actually had diverse origins and many mothers. Its worst offenses may be that it rendered nearly invisible the black women who labored in the suffragist vineyard, and that it looked away from the racism that tightened its grip on the fight for the women's vote in the years after the Civil War. Historians who are not inclined to hero worship, including Elsa Barkley Brown, Laurie Ginsburg, and Rosalind Terborg Penn, have recently provided an unsparing portrait of this once neglected period. Stripped of her halo, Stanton, the campaign's principal philosopher, is exposed as a classic liberal racist who embraced fairness in the abstract while publicly enunciating the bigoted views of African American men whom she characterized as Sambos and incipient rapists in the period just after the war. The suffrage struggle itself took on a similar flavor, acquiescing to white supremacy and selling out the interests of African American women when it became politically expedient to do so. This betrayal of trust opened a rift between black and white feminists that persists to this day. This toxic legacy looms especially large as cities including New York prepare monuments and educational programs to celebrate the centennial of the 19th Amendment ratified in 1920. This year will be the 100th year, which barred states from denying voting rights based on gender. Black feminists in particular are eager to see if these remembrances own up to the real history of the fight for the vote and whether black suffragists appear in them. The famous suffrage convention convened in Seneca Falls in New York in 1848 featured Stanton and her partner in arms, Lucretia Mott, who is right here in Cheltenham Township, Pennsylvania, in addition to the towering figure of Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist and dyed-in-the-wool supporter of women's rights, who was on his way to becoming one of the most famous speakers of the century. Were it not for Douglass's oratory, the historian Lisa Tetrault tell us in The Myth of Seneca Falls, the controversial resolution demanding the vote for women might actually have failed. It became clear after the Civil War that black and white women had different views of why the right to vote was essential. White women were seeking the vote as a symbol of parity with their husbands and brothers. Black women, most of whom lived in the South, were seeking the ballot for themselves and their men as a means of empowering black communities besieged by the reign of racial terror that erupted after emancipation. The tension escalated in the run-up to the 15th Amendment, a provision that ostensibly barred the states from denying Negro men the right to vote. Reasonable people could, of course, disagree on the merits of who should first be given the vote, women or black men. Stanton, instead, embarked on a Klan-like tirade against the amendment. She warned that white women would be degraded if Negro men preceded them into the franchise. Admiring historians have admissed this as an unfortunate interlude in an exemplary life. By contrast, the historian Laurie Ginsburg argues persuasively that racism and elitism were enduring features of the great suffrage makeup and philosophy. Similarly, the historian Faye Dundon wrote that Stanton dipped her pen into a tincture of white racism and sketched a reference to a nightmarish figure, the black rapist, and lashed out from the pages of the suffragist papers that she and Anthony published. Her message, the passage of the 15th Amendment would only mean degradation for women at the hands of Negro men, must have cheered the Ku Klux Klan as it terrorized the Black South. Douglass was clearly wounded by what he described as the employment of certain names such as Sambo and the Gardener and the Bootblack and all the rest, but gracefully declined to answer insult with insult. Instead, he summarized in dramatic fashion the differences between the interests of black and white suffragists and the case for federal protection of black voters. When women, because they are women, he said, are hunted down through the cities of New York and New Orleans, when they are dragged from their homes and hung on lampposts, when their children are torn from their arms and their brains dashed out upon the pavement, when they are objects of insult and outrage at every turn, when they are in danger of having their homes burnt down over their heads, when their children are not allowed to enter schools, they will have an urgency to obtain the ballot equal to our own. Douglas cut to the central fallacy of the white suffrage push that African American women could magically separate their blackness from their femaleness. The 15th Amendment, of course, was ratified. Women would wait another 50 years for the 19th. Racism intensified among suffragists as they neared their goals. African American luminaries like the noted anti-lynching crusader Ida B. Wells and the civil rights leader Mary Church Terrell became more deeply and publicly engaged. As in other instances, suffragists outside the South used the racism in the Jim Crow states as an excuse for their discriminatory treatment of their black suffragist sisters. Black women's suffrage clubs that sought formal affiliation with the national white suffrage movement were discouraged from doing so on the grounds that admitting them might anger white Southerners. It has since become clear that this was a ruse that Northern whites used to obscure their own discriminatory policies. And when I tell you, we've been having conversations in weeks about these folks that say that they're liberals and that they are Democrats and that they believe in making sure that black people get what is needed and that they have equal rights are some of the same people that are the most racist that we see across this country. We have been pulling back the curtains and unveiling a lot of this stuff that is going on. It feels like we're still back in the 1920s. 100 years later, we're still talking about this conversation. And so as we move forward and end this segment about the 100th anniversary for the women's right to vote, I want us to pay close attention to the black women that are around you, that are leaders, the black women that are standing in the gap, the black women that are taking the hits and the bumps and the bruises, the black women that are being marginalized at every turn because they dare to open up their mouths and have conversations about the suffrage of their people, the black women who are leading in the voting booths, who are changing the courses of elections. I need us to stand up in the gap and start acknowledging and putting these black women in the history book instead of just talking about Susan B. Anthony. I really need us to do that, okay? We are coming to the end of another episode of The Source. I want to thank Brianna for being awesome. The phone lines were completely lit up at one point, but she hung in there with me. Sincerely, Sarita is up next with Happy Hour. I am Andrea Lawful Sanders. I'll see you when I see you.